Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. And if you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Mrs. Sugars, could you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Stratton. Here. Mrs. Fleischer.
Here.
Mrs. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Greenbaum.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Dr. Rude.
Here.
Mrs. Tong.
Here.
Mrs. Winters.
Here.
Ms. Stern.
Here. Okay, tonight we have a board recognition. I just want to mention Mrs. Sugars is going to lead our meeting tonight. Dr. Malash is at his daughter's graduation and taking a much deserved evening to celebrate. Mrs. Sugars, I'm going to turn over the recognition of our student reps and alternative reps to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stern. Mrs. Wilson, could you meet me at the podium? So tonight we have, it's okay. Tonight, we are honoring our student representatives for the 22-23 school year, our hardworking representatives who sat through a lot of long meetings, but also provided very valuable input. So we're very happy to honor them this evening. After we present you with your plaque, we would like you to give your last report and then maybe tell us a little bit about what your future plans are. So tonight with us for representing East, we have Aiden Rude. And from West, we have our alternate with us, Emily Kratchman. And then also we have Lisbeth Reyes from West. She was our representative. I don't believe Lisbeth is with us this evening. And also Vivian Wrong was our alternate for East. So thank you very much for all of your hard work this year.
And I, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you both for your very dedicated service. It is not an easy role, and it is definitely a lot of long hours. So, and I want to thank in absence Liz and also Vivian. So, all right. So we move on to our
Ms. Stern, we're going to let them give their final reports and then talk a little bit about their future plans.
And this tonight, I think we start with what so I usually rely on Dr. Malash to keep me on track with who we start with. And I think we start with West tonight, the West report. So we're going to go with that.
For my last West report, starting in academics, NJSLA testing is currently taking place between 522 and 525 for 9th and 11th grade students. Students testing should report to their testing room by 7:30 a.m. And as a reminder, 10th grade students should report to the old theater at 7:30, while 12th grade students should report to the auditorium. The last week of classes is coming up in just 2 weeks, with finals beginning on June 8th. Moving to athletics, we have a very busy season going on right now. Girls and boys golf had a very successful season, and congratulations to both teams. West baseball is having a really strong season with a record of 16-7 with 16 wins and a spot in the playoffs, which they are participating in right now. And West softball is also on that same track and have begun playoffs. Boys volleyball is also going strong with a record of 15-4. The first rounds of the conference will be played this week. And girls lacrosse has had a remarkable season, undefeated in the division. There's many highlights for the girls with Tatum Wood's 100th career goal, junior Sophia Levine's 100th career goal, and senior Carolyn Kirk's 100th career assist. Congratulations to all three and the whole team. And boys lacrosse has also had an exceptional season with senior Cooper Legato's 100th career goal and 200 career points. Congratulations to the whole team. And the boys tennis team is continuing to have a great season as well. And this year's the first year girls flag football was implemented and everyone has had a lot of fun. And West Track is now on to their championship season, competing in the Camden County Championships, Olympic Conference Championships, and Group 3 sectional championships throughout the next week. And congratulations to all of the sports teams for a great season, whether they're continuing or they have ended. Now moving on to the arts, National Art Honor Society inductions were held last Wednesday, May 17th. Congratulations to all of those inducted. And the West Choral concert was held last Thursday, May 18th, and they put on a wonderful performance. And all those involved were wonderful. And the Pops concert will be held on Wednesday, May 31st at 7 p.m. Be sure to support your fellow peers as well as see Mr. Mark's last show before his retirement. And now for school news, West's first ever Multicultural Day took place last Wednesday, May 17th, throughout the school day. It was a wonderful day filled with much diversity and culture, and we thank and congratulate those who were involved and helped make the show happen. And the day after that, the West annual World Language Cook-Off took place last Thursday, May 18th, all day in the library. This was a great event and brought together several different cultures. And last week, senior photos for the incoming class were held, and the class of 24 also attended a meeting for the senior trip to Disney next year. And West held a teacher appreciation breakfast on May 15th, and NHS sponsored this event with many students involved in buying food items for this event. Thank you, NHS, and thank you, teachers, for all you do. And that's it for West.
Emily, can you tell us a little bit about your future plans?
So next year, I plan to attend American University to go into audio production and business. So I plan on getting involved there in women in audio and trying to kickstart something there. And just really just trying to get involved with everything, try to continue getting my own music out, and maybe starting a new band as well. But yeah, just trying to weasel my way into the music industry, hopefully. And yeah, this year has been great. And Liz is actually in Boston right now for her brother's graduation. But we really just wanted to thank Mrs. Roscoff and Dr. Morin for their support this year, and to the board for believing in us. And it was an honor to serve this year. And I have no doubt in my mind that both Colin and Latasha will do a great job next year. And I'm really looking forward to see what they do.
All right, Aiden, you're up.
Okay, good evening. So I have some remarks prepared here that combine both the report and kind of a reflection on this year and looking forward to future plans next year. So first, I will share my standard update and recap recent events at East. And I will note that Dr. Perry is here tonight, and he will be sharing a few of the same updates, although maybe he can add some greater context. He's going to be talking about a lot of the successes at East this year, and I'm also talking about some successes at East. So apologies if I'm stepping on any toes with Dr. Perry, but you know, our accomplishments at East are just so great. We're gonna talk about them twice. So first, before that, in what I would deem perhaps our least fun but most important news, work has begun on the roof. So construction will occur throughout the summer as roof work from the bond begins and proceeds. Meanwhile, we have celebrated many successes in recent weeks at East. First, in the days just after our last meeting, I believe when I gave my last report, students were currently in the middle of competitions, but in the days after that, 4 teams and individuals from East placed within the top 3 in the world in various categories at the international competition of DECA. So congratulations to them. Congratulations also to the boys volleyball team at East, which recently won its conference title. Additionally, East Choral Concert was a successful event this month, as was our Model United Nations Conference, which was the first hosted at East in over 10 years. Eastside, our school newspaper, also recently took a trip to Washington, D.C., where students had an opportunity to tour the Capitol building and the Library of Congress and to learn about photojournalism in D.C. In addition to extracurricular successes, East celebrated excellence in the arts at its recent Performing and Visual Arts Society show, as well as academic excellence at its cum laude induction ceremony held recently. Also exhibiting academic and artistic excellence was the announcement of an East student as a U.S. presidential scholar in the arts, which was very exciting and made all of us at East proud. Moving on to upcoming events, East will host multiple additional concerts and Honor Society inductions in the coming weeks, further showcasing student success and hard work this year. In student voice events and developments, East students participated alongside teachers and administrators in interviews to hire 2 new assistant principals for the coming school year at East. And they will also participate in one final town hall meeting this school year with Dr. Malash. Additionally, East will host an exciting day of activities this Friday, as our annual field day will be merged with our first ever wellness day, offering students an opportunity to both physically and mentally recharge before finals. Finals will take place largely in a project-based format beginning on June 9th. Upcoming events, of course, also include our senior activities, ranging from prom on June 1st to senior clapouts at the elementary schools on June 15th to graduation on June 19th. On that day, all of our seniors, including myself, will begin the next phase in our journey, which I will share about for myself and for Vivian, who could not be here tonight, momentarily. First, though, I wanted to reflect on this present phase, which has been exciting and full of opportunity. I have been honored to serve as the representative of more than 2,000 students whose lives are directly affected by this board, and I feel hopeful that I have been able to plant seeds of progress that will blossom in the years to come, from issues like school start times to sustainability. I have also been proud to bring an important element of representation to the board. As many of you know, I'm a transgender and non-binary member of the LGBTQ+ community. And in a time when that community is too often marginalized, I feel it is important to recognize, and I'm proud to recognize that it has been my honor and privilege to push back on that marginalization by taking a seat at the table, literally and figuratively, on behalf of our hopeful and resilient queer community. I hope that my impact in that regard will be a lasting one as future generations of students continue to strongly advocate for equity in our schools. And I know that my successor and Vivian's as alternate will certainly make significant strides in that continued pursuit of a school community that works better for all of its students, as we could not be more proud than to be succeeded by Matt Rentazelas and Gia Gupta, both of whom are in the audience tonight, and both of whom are excellent students and even better people who will bring great spirit and competence to their roles. I would like to thank the board for its hospitality and collaboration over the past year. Service as a BOE member is too often a thankless job, but tonight I thank you for all partnering with the other student representatives and I to further the best interest of students in Cherry Hill. So I've been very glad to work with you all. And moving forward, I will be attending Mount Holyoke College, a small liberal arts college in Massachusetts, to study politics and gender studies. And Vivian will be attending Harvard University to study English. So we're very excited for our future plans, and thank you again.
So again, thank you both. Thank you to Vivian and Liz. I think it's really nice for us to hear the voice that you guys bring and represent, and to have, known you both all year. So thank you. We're very excited to welcome both Matt and Gia. and also Colin and Latasha. We're excited to see your contributions and to have you at the table. Bless you. So we will now move on to our principal updates. So thank you. Welcome to our I think it's our three principals, right? That we have. I don't know, no one's blocking. Okay. Move on to you.
Good evening. I'm Danielle Edwards. I'm the principal at our Marlburg Early
Danielle.
Childhood Center.
Danielle, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you hold on for one
Okay.
second? I think we were going to give our new reps just a moment to come to the
Okay.
podium and introduce themselves. So if you don't mind, Danielle, could we just hold on one second? And if we could have our West representatives, Colin and Latasha, come on up and introduce yourselves as our student reps for next year.
Good evening. My name is Colin Duckett. I'm very much looking forward to working with you all over the next academic year. I did have some remarks prepared for my first meeting. I wish I would have brought them to this meeting. But I'm looking forward to delivering them and giving you a much wider view as to who I am, not just as a student, but as your neighbor, because that's what this all boils down to, is we are neighbors, and it boils down to friendship. Neighbors are here to support one another and help each other succeed. I'm also looking forward to creating a very inclusive environment, as mentioned, and creating an environment for all students to thrive as they pass from elementary school to middle school and to high school and on as they pursue future endeavors. Thank you very much.
I am Latasha. I go by Tasha, so that's fine. I'm very excited to be representing West on something important as the school board. And I'm actually new to Cherry Hill, the district. I came here my freshman year, and I've never felt so welcomed and connected to human beings as I have in the many schools I've attended before here. So it was important for me to be able to represent people who may not feel that way, or who may be able to gain more information about what goes on here from the upper level, from people like me. And I think representing the unheard in the halls, or the people who just are uneducated about the processes that make our school turn. And I think if I can share what I know here and then share what I learned from you all there, then we can make changes in our community and our schools. Because what happens in our schools is ultimately what happens in our community. You know, we all grow up. And I feel like if I feel like safe as a child, like I'll feel safe as an adult. And I want to share that with all the people, if I have children, or like everyone in this community. And I love Cherry Hill, and I'm very excited to be a part of this committee. So thank you. I also had stuff prepared, but I wasn't.
You will both have a chance. During your first meeting, we will make sure you both have a chance to introduce yourselves. But it's really lovely to hear from both of you. And stop, please don't make us cry at this table anymore, because it's you guys are why we're here. And if we want to get Matt and Gia, if you want to approach.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew, or Matt. I'm perfectly fine with either name. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I'm very honored to have been selected for such an important role, even though many of the things we report may seem small to adults or other people in the community. They really can make an impact. And I feel that making the Cherry Hill East experience as guiding and as safe as possible for East students can really make a difference and really impact people's lives for now and the future. So I hope that we can all work together to ensure that the children in this community can have a better future. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gia Gupta. I'm very excited to follow in the footsteps of Aiden and Vivian this year to continue representing the voices of many students at East. And I'd like to just echo everything Matt said. And I'm super excited to work alongside all of the students this year. I mean, I already work in Eastside, and I've been writing a lot of articles, and I've kind of been working on representing East voices for my entire East career. So I'm excited to bring that to the board this upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you both. Fantastic. Very excited. Right. This is what we love, right? All right, Ms. Edwards, back to you. I'm sorry to make you wait.
Okay. Hello again. You can go to the next slide. I'll just be presenting some of the things that we have to celebrate at our Marburg Early Childhood Center this school year. And we do have a lot to celebrate. So at the start of the school year, especially with me being new, I spent a lot of times in the classrooms and listening to my staff to try to gain an understanding of our instructional needs. So with all the data that I gathered, I was able to provide my staff with ongoing professional development from Teaching Strategies, which is the company that provides our curriculum that we use. Our teachers and our educational assistants engaged in training to fully understand the curriculum, and they received ongoing coaching support monthly from the presenters from the professional development sessions. Additionally, we were able to update our curriculum materials this school year to ensure each classroom had the materials they needed to fully implement their new learning from the professional development and coaching sessions that they attended. And it was wonderful watching our staff unpack their materials for their classroom, as it was something they all shared they've been asking for a while. Our curriculum is focused on academics through a play-based environment paired with social and emotional development to ensure readiness for kindergarten. We also have 2 teachers who are currently piloting Second Step to see if we'll incorporate it into our program as well, so we can be in better alignment with our elementary schools as we prepare our cubs for kindergarten. Marburg will also be highlighted by Teaching Strategies and recognized for the work we've done this year with our professional development, as well as our commitment to ensuring that our students with individualized education plans have access and participate fully in our creative curriculum. As part of creative curriculum for preschool, we use Teaching Strategies Goal, which is our assessment tool. These are the social emotional objectives that we collect data on throughout the school year. In this picture, we have students who are playing in a dramatic play area, which supports their development in making friends and solving social problems, among some of the other objectives that's listed up there. We currently have over 70% of our students who are meeting and exceeding the objectives and expectations in this area. These are our math objectives that we collect data on throughout the school year. And in this picture, the students voted on their favorite food, and they were able to count how many of their friends chose each item. And we currently have over 50% of our students who are meeting expectations in our math objectives. Lastly, these are our literacy objectives. And in this picture, we have one of our teachers engaging our students in a Pete the Cat story. She's teaching them to use print concepts and also allowing them to interact during reading experiences. And we currently have over 70% of our students that are meeting and exceeding expectations in our literacy objectives as well. Our current checkpoint period has not ended, but I was excited to share where we currently are. Our Cubs are doing a great job this school year, and I attribute that to the success of our teachers with their new learning they've learned about our curriculum. We've also scheduled articulation meetings this school year with our kindergarten teams. We're going to be sharing data and our curriculum and giving the kindergarten teams an explanation about our preschool expectations. Articulation in the K-5 setting is imperative, and we want to ensure that our Cubs are prepared as they move into kindergarten. We also have been increasing our community involvement at Marburg this school year, which of course is pivotal to our program. Our Cubs make cards for veterans, and we also participated in the Division of Protection and Permanency toy drive. And lastly, our staff partnered with the Philadelphia Eagles Autism Foundation, and we raised over $7,000 for their autism walk this past weekend. I look forward to continuing the work that we're doing to provide our Cubs with a phenomenal preschool experience and meaningful instruction to prepare them for kindergarten as we move to our full day program next year. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it off to Rebecca for updates from Beck.
Thank you, Danielle. Pardon my voice here. I'll be short. Beck, I focused our report out on our 3 goals. So our first goal was reflecting the board goal of student wellness, and we had a very successful rollout of the second step curriculum across all grade levels. The counselors were involved very closely in working with teachers in delivering the lessons that were assigned. Some of the teams and teachers even asked for follow-up lessons or specific lessons that were speaking to issues that were occurring in maybe in their grade level or on their team. We're also piloting the use of a positive behavior intervention system platform with one of our teams, just working out some of the little internal quirks of a system like that. And we are looking forward to rolling that out for the entire school next year, building off of the work that Dr. Perry had put into place years ago with the positives and the positive behavior support and incentives. And then we're also curating restorative practice lessons and resources that we're utilizing with students who need counseling around issues with peer interactions and peer conflicts. Actually linked to this document, but we won't go there today. This is an example of a lesson that one of the counselors prepared for a 6th grade team that was really struggling with how words can be powerful and how over, days or even just over a few hours, a student can be made to feel really poorly and have struggles with their peers and classmates. So she went in and taught this lesson to each of the advisories about how those words can kind of damage how we feel, and then it's really hard to undo that. So those are the types of activities that the counselors have been building and working with teams of teachers. Secondly, purpose and passion. We have returned to really structured PLC groups, and we have leaned heavily on the Office of C&I, specifically our ELA coach, Megan Langman, our district technology coach, Heather Esposito, and one of our secondary math coaches, Jim Wentz. They have been working with all of our core content faculty, not just math and ELA, but working across those different disciplines to look at how we can best prepare students, not just for assessments, but best prepare them to move forward into the high school with those critical literacy, writing, math, calculation, and conceptual math understanding skills. So they worked with the coaches several times throughout the year, reporting out on structured PLC agendas. This is just an example of how they were tracking student progress and determining the need for interventions in small groups, utilizing that 25-minute period that is part of our long period cycle. And so these are just some examples of different opportunities they took to work with students on individual NJSLA standards, and also ensure that students are moving successfully between our very, very intense and demanding curriculum, which will prepare them to be moving forward to high school east, west, and other high schools. Another thing that we did is we talked to students as we kind of prepared for NJSLA. Again, a testing window and a test is just one point in time. It's a picture of what students are doing on a particular day. But we also wanted to be sure that students felt supported, prepared, confident in their ability to handle those items and those materials. So we actually built in some very structured practice opportunities because kids said they felt nervous. They weren't sure what to expect. They didn't know what it might look like. So we built in these structured practice opportunities over about 3 weeks prior to, with the intention of building next year into that seamlessly throughout the year. So these are just some examples of different activities that teachers were conducting in all core content areas, not just in math and ELA. So the third goal is connecting beyond our classroom. I'm sorry. Connecting beyond our classroom. So we really leaned heavily into reestablishing some of those community partnerships that we've had with the Jewish Federation and the Jewish Council in bringing the programs into the building that I think we had done prior to COVID, but had sort of lapsed. So there's a list of the different programs and opportunities that we did take advantage of. The Through the Eyes of the Friend Holocaust Education Program was just last week, and it was Yeah, it was just last week. Sorry. It was Tuesday actually. And it was very, very powerful. The kids really were engaged with the speakers, Holocaust survivors, in building off the work they had done in 8th grade ELA. We also had the guest reader program in, which I think was a first for Beck. I don't know about other middle schools, but we had readers come in, volunteers from the Rob Goodwin Center to come in and read a book about tolerance and acceptance to all of the 6th grade. Really well received. I sat in on many of the presentations and the kids were really engaged and had great questions and really had a lot more insight than I think maybe we were expecting, because we do see that they're struggling with managing peer relationships. So it was really a great opportunity to re-engage in some of those community partnerships, and also really seeking to build some field trip experiences, since that is, had gone away during COVID, and the 7th grade has a unit in science on the body systems. And so they did visit the Body World exhibit in Allentown, PA. It was quite a ride, but very, very interesting, sparked a lot of questions and curiosity about that unit. And then finally, we also have really worked to support participation in our clubs and activities, just highlighting two of the current going on. Project Invent, which is an entrepreneurship, I say competition, but it's really designed to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. They traveled to New York last Saturday and won a regional award against all high school teams. And they will be traveling to California 2 weeks from now to compete against all high school students with their innovation. What you can't see is that's a wearable device that they created for an individual who has a medical condition that about regulating his autosomatic nervous system. And so they created this wearable tech that is scalable and affordable. So it's been a great opportunity. And the students that are represented by Project Invent are really a wide representation of a variety of students. So it's been great to see those students engaging in that. And then thank you to East. They worked with our robotics students, and our team Vortex did attend the World Championships in Houston just a few weeks ago. But that was sponsored by East, and we're very thankful for their support in having the kids be able to do that. And then finally, we're continuing our community service projects. It's something that is not only ongoing and very much student and teacher selected. It's not right now an overarching goal that we have as a building. It's that every team and every teacher and all of those students have felt a call to a particular project or to a partnership that they've had. And so we continue those community service projects and look forward to expanding and continuing them into next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards and Ms. Metzger. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Board of Education. 18 years ago was right around the time that Aiden was being born. And I was in my first year as principal at Beck Middle School. And we had an administrative activity at the time. It was called the State of the School, similar to the State of the Nation. And we would give an address, and not too different from some of the information that we're sharing tonight. So I say that to say that I really appreciate this opportunity from the Board of Education to share some successes from our year. East is both high schools, all the schools in Cherry Hill are wonderful high schools. I'm very proud to be the principal of East, and I'm very proud to have the opportunity to speak about the successes of East. I think it's fine that Aiden lifted much of his presentation off of my presentation tonight. So it's okay. I'll just remember next year not to meet the same night before with representatives. But we've had a great year, and oftentimes presentations to the board when I've had an opportunity to make them were typically to pitch an idea, to ask for support of funding or some, or to review academic data that has been garnered over time, and looking at trends. And that's important. And, the academic portion of East, I can assure you, the state of our academics is strong. But tonight, I'd really like to focus on the experience. It's something that Aiden mentioned in the remarks that were made. And I think that the experience that you have in school is what you remember. And it's really important to me at my core that every student in high school East has a great experience during their time at East. And so we're fortunate. We have an amazing instructional staff, support staff. people that will give up their time and spend time with children and help them pursue their interests, to form affinity groups, and to support our students. Even when like new ideas come up, people are right there to support them. So I'm very appreciative of our entire faculty and staff for that. And so the way that I organized this, a little different than I anticipated initially, but as went through the success team, to categorize them in the following way. So first, East competes, right? We have a robust athletic department. Mr. Brow does an amazing job at both High School East and High School West of providing for great coaches, great team uniforms, great team equipment, great scheduling, all of that sort of stuff. And we have wonderful coaches that make it happen too. And so with that, we have 877 students who participated in athletic events this year at East, 877. We had some state champions. Our girls swim team was they were the state champion. That's the second year in a row that they are state champions. And our esports, relatively new program at East and at many schools, they just recently, in the past week, were named and won the state championship for esports. We also had national qualifiers. This is very impressive. National qualifiers for our winter track program, which often doesn't get a lot of recognition, winter track, but our boys 4x800 and our girls 4x400 relays, national qualifiers. East continues to compete. We had division or conference championships in football. Our football program has grown significantly. Just 4 years ago, we had a total of 26 students, 26 at a school of 2,100, 26 students on our JV and varsity team combined. At this time, we are right around 100 students. It's a thriving program, and this past year we won our conference. Our girls cross country team, they are also conference champs or division champs. Very exciting. In fact, they were 6th in the state in the tournament that occurred. Very proud of that team there. Our boys swimming continues perpetually to be our conference champs, and year in, year out competes for the state title. This year they were the runner-up for the state in boys swimming. We anticipate next year, maybe that'll flip back again. Boys volleyball recently, golf also recently won their conferences, and the boys tennis also recently. In fact, the boys tennis has been undefeated for the last 3 years during regular season. Furthermore, we have a team of young men who have been undefeated in their entire high school career, which is very impressive. We had an individual South Jersey champion in wrestling on our girls wrestling team. And we've had several athletes committed to participate in Division I and intercollegiate athletics. East also performs tomorrow night. We have our bands concert, and on Thursday night we have our orchestra and jazz band concerts. Recently had our choir concerts, and we've had a number of events. We have approximately 500 students that participate in our music programs, about 500 students. We have students who have placed into all South Jersey, all state, all regional, and even national ensembles. Our chorus, they're amazing. They had first place finishes. Our Stay Tuned, that's our a cappella group. They placed first in the ICHSA quarterfinals. We hosted it this year and last year in auditorium. It's a regional competition, and they moved on and did very well nationally. Music in the Park, our concert choir, chansons, and East Singers all were awarded first place. East continues to perform. Our marching band is highly acclaimed. It's very successful. They're division champs. We actually entered a new more competitive division this year, and we are division champions. Our jazz band, if you've seen any of the social media pieces that have gone out, they have received superior or first place ratings at all of their competitions. We've had a number of solo and also group awards that have been given. Our Thespian Society, we had a wonderful fall play, the Canterville Ghost, this year. And then in the spring, the very musically challenging Into the Woods was performed. Fantastic. And then we have a mime company. Not many schools, in fact, I'm not aware of any other school in New Jersey, certainly that has a mime company, let alone a thriving mime company. It's not just 4, 5, 6 kids, and we have dozens of children in our young people in the mime group. It's amazing. So in addition to performing, East is involved. Our robotics team, as Ms. Metzger mentioned, has been very successful this year. We included a team from Beck this year too. We're kind of looking to grow the future in that area. They won many tournaments this year and had a team that qualified for nationals. In fact, that's our 14th straight year that a team has qualified for nationals. Model United Nations. I'm very excited about Model UN. This has been historically a very successful organization at East, and then took a hiatus for about 10 to 12 years, and wasn't there. We were able to bring it back 2 years ago. It is thriving at this point in time, and we were able to host for the first time in over a decade a conference this past two weekends ago. Very successful. Also, a model UN for other schools. DECA, as you may or may not be aware, the DECA program at East is also highly successful. We had 35 students this year that attended nationals in Orlando, Florida. And we also had 4 top 3 finishes. That's an East school record. We've never in the history of East been as successful as we were this year at the nationals. Our Latin club is doing well. The year 1 and year 2 students placed first in South Jersey in that competition. East continues to be involved. Our yearbook was mentioned by Jostens, which is a national publisher, as one of the best nationally for yearbook. Our East Side program, as Aiden mentioned, recently took a trip to Washington, D.C., but they've also been recently acclaimed. They are the top high school New Jersey print newspaper in the state. It's the 14th straight year that is true. They're also the top New Jersey online newspaper. And our alternative, Vivian Rong, is a top 10 national student multimedia journalist, top 10 national multimedia journalist. That's an incredible accomplishment. And our computer programming club, first and third place at the Rowan programming competition. East continues to be involved. We have a speech team. This is also a relatively new competitive team that we have at East. Has been incredibly successful. They compete almost every weekend throughout the winter months. It's a really wonderful team, great experience for students, and it's very impressive. They get the information, and within 20 minutes or half hour, they have to come up with this big speech. It's amazing. Sign language club. Thought I'd share that with you. Again, we have over 100 clubs at East that students participate in. I wanted to share the sign language club. It's a relatively new club, but they signed the national anthem at our home varsity basketball games this year, which was very cool. That was a very neat thing to see. The students enjoyed it very much. Our Black History Show, we work with students at High School West, the students at East and High School West combined to put on a Black History Show each year. And we were able to have that again this year. Our GSA group hosted a day of silence at East as a show of support. The Lunar New Year celebration. We have thriving Asian clubs at our school, students of Asian descent. We have Korean Culture Club, we have Chinese Culture Club, and Vietnamese Culture Club. The 3 culture clubs combined to put on a Lunar New Year celebration this year, which was incredibly well received. And this past weekend, our Latinos and Amigos Club hosted the Noche Latina party. East also gives. And again, as I mentioned there, we do not have enough time for me to list all of the philanthropic endeavors, but I did want to highlight some. Our blood drive, which literally saves lives. We had over 450 students and staff in 2 separate, we had a fall and a spring giving sessions. 450 students and staff participated in donating blood. Our canned food drive, the one that occurred around Spirit Week time, we had over 4,100 cans of food that were donated. Habitat for Humanity. I highlighted that. That is the only high school Habitat for Humanity chapter in the state of New Jersey, the only one. And this also has a large group of students that participate in day builds. So they'll leave on a school day and day builds. They also went to Baltimore to do some builds in Baltimore for an extended time. And they recently had a stuff a truck stuff a truck event to receive donations for folks. And then we had some of our culture clubs also participate in the donations for the earthquake victims, those in Syria and Turkey earlier in the year, if you recall, and also for the tragedies in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. All right, East continues to give the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, holiday parties. This has morphed somewhat in recent time with COVID not having the large gathering over at the Sheraton, but instead they've been going out to the elementary schools to support the programs at the elementary schools and decorating the classrooms around the holidays. Been very well received. Numerous groups have donated food to food banks. We had UNICEF blanket making, sandwiches for our homeless. And we have a number of students at East that will go to both Beck and Rosa as part of our bridge program to provide tutoring for the students at both Beck and Rosa, as well as tutoring at East. So as typically we share, but in a little bit different way, East learns, right? Our students at East are learning, and I included some of the numbers here. This current year, the graduating class, we have 10 students who have committed to Ivy League schools for the coming year. We have 462 courses, dual credit courses that are being taken. I mean, that's an incredible savings to students and families in receiving those college credits while in high school. It's also a huge increase from our numbers from last year. Also a large increase from our numbers from last year, in fact, doubling our numbers from last year. The Seal of Biliteracy recipients. These are the students that have demonstrated that they're fluent in both English and another language. 109 students we recognized at graduation for having received the Seal of Biliteracy. And again, that's doubling of last year's number. National Merit Scholars, we had 30 qualifiers and 4 finalists. And as Ada mentioned, we had 1 presidential scholar this year. If you're not familiar with the presidential scholar, there are only 2 per state, 1 male, 1 female. In this entire state of New Jersey. In each state, 55 students of male students nationally, 55 female students nationally that are recognized. And so East has the 1 young man from New Jersey. So we're very proud of that. East School Climate. Again, this really speaks to the experience of being a student at East. We have an activities fair every fall, so students can come out and interact with those 100 clubs that I mentioned earlier to see which ones are of interest to them. And to decide like where they want to maybe stretch themselves and get some new interests. We have a student character awards breakfast. This is something that we've done all the way back in my time at Beck. It's a very proud opportunity to invite students and parents in to recognize for their character, and we're very excited to do that periodically as we do. We have new student transition lunches. We have students that transfer into certainly both high schools throughout the year. And so what we will do roughly every 6 weeks or so is we'll have a new student transition lunch. We'll have the students who are new to our school. We'll have a luncheon for them. We'll invite them down. We'll answer questions and talk about orienting them a little bit to East. We'll introduce them to further East students, all of which, of course, happens after our cadre of students welcome them when they first arrive at East as well. We have parades for the school. So for our state champions, we have our marching band drum line that actually will parade those students through you may have seen this online, and their classmates line the hallways and cheer for them. It's a really wonderful way to celebrate their success and to recognize that it's a total school and student body success when that happens. And then adding to the school climate, our lunch and learn. Lunch and learn happens in the middle of the day. It's an opportunity for students certainly to get academic help, but we also have our gyms available for students to play basketball and volleyball and badminton. The turf field in the back is open. Kids will play pickup soccer and football and run the track even. Students will hang out on beautiful days in the bleachers out there, sit under a tree and contemplate their fate, read a book, sit with their friends, listen to music, whatever they need for their mental health, as well as their academic successes during that time. So that's a very, very important part of our day at East. Upcoming, as Ada mentioned, we have Wellness Day. This is organized by our students and our student government, student council. They are going to pair that with our field day, and it's going to be this Friday. We have outside agencies coming in to talk about taking care of ourselves, mental health, physical health, good nutrition. So we're excited for that first inaugural day of that. Multicultural Day opportunity. We have 14 culture clubs at East, 14 groups that will have booths and will present information and food about their cultures, as well as a number of them that will put on performances for our students. It's a great day, and it's a great way to learn, have some appreciation for cultures that may not be as familiar to us. This year, we also hosted 10 students from Germany in an exchange. We have students who from East at the end of June that will be going to Germany in a similar exchange. We're excited about that. And then I wanted to mention that our senior sunrise, which happens at the beginning of the year, and then we have our senior sunset that's coming up. It's just a nice analogy, for the opening and ending of our senior year. For the staff, staff support and SEL. This is a tough time. I wanted to share this information in this format. Coming out of COVID, these were the things we longed for, right? Academics were still happening, just in different ways during the COVID. All of the things that I'm mentioning tonight with you were those missing pieces. This is what was lost: the experience of being in a school, the East experience, the connectedness that we feel with our students, and that is true for our staff as well. It's been a challenging time for all teachers to come back into the classroom. Different priorities have emerged. The need for mental health has never been greater. So I wanted to speak to that a little bit. So I mentioned lunch and learn. The office hours that our staff provide for students during that time is critical and very important. This year, and in response to student voice from the past about staff coming out and supporting various events, our staff this year committed to attending, every staff member committed to attending at least one female sporting event this year to show their support. Many attended many more than that, but certainly at least the 180 of our staff attended one. They also committed to attending a student performance this year so they could see and really appreciate their students and their talents and their efforts. We have 4 faculty meetings every month. East has a very large staff. To get anything done that's productive with 160 to 180 folks in the room is a challenge. And we really utilize our faculty meetings as professional development sessions. They're learning sessions. We have a book read each year. This year it's The Teenage Brain, so that we can kind of understand what's going on there a little bit better. And so we break it up into 4 faculty meetings, 4 groups of the faculty. So they are in cohorts. And so we'll have those professional development sessions for each of those 4 groups each month. This year we had a CHOP challenge. So you may not know, but we have a very acclaimed cooking teacher at our school that has competed and won on the cooking show. And so this year, she and some others hosted for our faculty a CHOP challenge. That was very exciting. The staff loved it. There's a picture there of a couple of our staff members that were participating in the CHOP challenge, and it was a great bonding event. And I think really went a long way in supporting the comfort and the belonging sense that our staff feels at East. And excited to announce tonight that our faculty is also preparing for a faculty musical, which will be October 14th of this coming fall. So it's called Back to the Prom. It's a parody on Back to the Future with some parody songs. It's cute. It's funny. I think everyone will enjoy it, but it's another great opportunity, not only for our staff to bond together. It's a large school, and being in departments, you don't always get to know everybody or see everyone. So events like that are important. It'll also be great for our students to see their teachers and administration in that light. So I'm excited for that. So once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I know, and I appreciate, Aiden, you've done an amazing job this year representing East and sharing this information. I thank you for that. I've enjoyed our many conversations, and I'm going to miss you. So good luck next year. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And then questions, mostly for Ms. Edwards and Metzger.
So thank you, Ms. Edwards, Ms. Metzger, and Dr. Perry, and now board members. We heard a lot and we learned a lot. So questions, comments? Mrs. Winters.
Thank you. My question is for Ms. Edwards. Thank you for mentioning the piloting of Second Step in our preschool. My question is that when my son was there last year, they were doing Owls Pals, which I thought was connected to Second Step as well. Can you talk about whether it's the same program or something different that you're working on?
Owls Pals is connected to creative curriculum. We did not find success with OSPOS, and we also just feel that Second Step will be in better alignment with the elementary schools as they move through our district. So we decided to pilot it this year to determine if we would use it. And so far it's working well. We're still figuring out how to make it best fit with our self-contained classrooms, but for our inclusion classrooms, it's been working well.
That's really good information. Thanks. I was on the kindergarten committee when we talked about Second Step for kindergarten, so I'm excited to see the articulation in preschool. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
So really no questions. Thank you, all three of you. It's, we have opportunities, not as many as we'd like to hear of the successes that all the students and the staff at all the levels, all the schools have. So I appreciate hearing about that. I know that there's more success that you don't have the time to go into. That those students the ones that don't win the awards, the ones that don't go to nationals are just as proud of what they do and what they have accomplished and what they have learned and how they've grown as those that are walking on maybe with some awards. And I'm sure that not just the three of you here, but all of the principals, all the schools support those students as well. You know, it's important to all of us. So thank you for giving us that, you know, some insight, and you should all be proud of what they've done and what your staff does. And certainly we are as well. I'll make one personal comment about the dominance of the Cherry Hill East boys tennis team. That is a long-standing issue. My record against Cherry Hill East singles players was suboptimal. I will say also that the first singles boys player when I was a senior at a different school was a girl, and she was unbelievable. So I learned to respect athletes regardless of what they look like and what their gender was. So that aside, whether it's athletics, academics, clubs, supporting one another, supporting neighbors, you're doing a great job. I'm glad to hear it. And, you know, I look forward to hearing more of it.
Ms. Elmer Stratton.
So I'm glad Mr. Mayor said it. So then when I say something, I don't get blasted, because I usually do. So I had that as a note as well, just surrounding when we're reporting out on the high school where they're going. I would love for us to just celebrate all of them as well. And not just those going to college, those going on to CTE careers, military, Air Force. And I know we do that very well at graduation. We definitely recognize all those students. But when we're doing highlights, everything should be highlighted and probably in percentages so that it's a little bit more equitable for everybody to see. That's so, and then my other just kind of thought in terms of where was it? Just because it's the end of the year, and I know that Ms. Metzger, you mentioned a lot of community services. East is doing a bajillion community services. When they're doing that, who's providing the funds for the supplies for each of those things?
So really, it depends on the project and what type of support they are engaging in. So for instance, the blankets that were made, the teachers on that team did spend some of their own funds to provide supplies for the students to be able to do that. When we do a food collection or food donation, students and community members and faculty members are bringing in donations for those types of things. It really does just depend, I think, a bit on what activity is taking place and what we're seeking to donate or participate in.
Thank you for that. You answered perfectly. So the end of the year, a lot of our teachers are broke right about now because they are doing this all year round. They're supplying students to do this community service. I kind of figured that was the mode, and our parents are too. They're giving of every elementary school I go to, the parents have like spent their dollars on making sure the community is great. So I love that we do that. I just want us to remember that come September, when that list comes out of all the thousands of supplies that the teachers need, buy it because they need it. These are the reasons why. And then also encourage folks to get on these PTAs because this is why we need more engagement and participation. So thank you for that. I kind of set you up, but thank you for that.
Thanks.
And then my other question is just in terms of just culture and climate as we move forward and like I love to hear about the wellness days. Are we doing like when they have their PLC groups? I'm looking at the wrong person. When they had those PLC groups, do they share that so that like other schools are copying that or able to replicate that? Because those are great ideas.
Well, there's cross-district departmental meetings that occur at times. What's interesting in the high schools, the high school schedule doesn't foundationally provide for PLC time. So Dr. Perry, well, myself now, but Dr. Burns and moving forward have to utilize duty time to create PLC opportunities. So Dr. Perry will make a decision to say either I can cover hallways or provide some other type of coverage in the building, or I can free teachers up to be able to meet around PLC for PLC times. It's a tough balancing act at times when attempting to manage the building, but we believe that PLC is that important that he's willing to sacrifice some of that time to allow them to do that work. Then when they come together cross-district for departmental meetings, they do have an opportunity to share, not as frequently as probably as we would like to, but there are opportunities at the secondary level.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know if they get to connect because we just saw like 20 slides of amazingness at East, and I hope that they're sharing that at well, Dr. Burns was still here. Tell him all those things as well. Each building does so well at creating their own culture and community. And I just hope that we're really keeping to our collaboration and really sharing some of those best practices or things that are done well. So that's all.
Mrs. Hosher, before we go to you, I'm sorry, Dr. Morton, could you just clarify about what you I don't know that I fully understood what you said about PLC time, because it's built into the schedule, correct? PLC time?
PLC time is built into the schedule
high
at the
school level.
elementary level.
At
So
the
it's part of the schedule
Okay.
structurally. It's built into the schedule. At the high school level, the building administrators have to provide that time for staff. So it's provided through the use of duty time. So duty is an administrative duty that staff perform. So it could be lunch duty, it could
Right.
be hall
Bathroom,
room,
hall,
it could
right.
be
Bathroom,
bathroom or
laundry.
something like that. So the administration, again, as I said, has to balance the needs of the building around what's priority and what's most important. Again, we understand the importance of PLC. Principals understand the importance of teacher collaboration. So they will sacrifice time and ability to be able to manage the building for staff to come together around PLC and collaboration ideas and moments.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank
it
you
is built in at the middle school level as well. It's just the high school schedule doesn't afford for it.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry. Okay, Mrs. Fleischer.
Thank you. I'm actually also going to build off of one of the things that Mrs. Elmer Stratton had talked about. And I just am very thankful about the wellness focus right now, especially with all of you talking about after COVID, whether it's from the preschool and making friends and doing socialization, which all the kids have missed, or, with at the middle school, talking about making sure that they're supported with things such as the JFCS coming in and making sure that they're learning the right things, and being empathetic to people, which is a huge thing I know that's coming up right now, and the wellness day, listening to student voice at East. So that was something like a highlight of all three of them that I think has really hit us, that we've been focusing on the SEL and making sure, students, that's one aspect of them coming out of COVID. We always are focusing on the academics and making sure we can do the best for our students, but we also want to focus on the wellness and the emotional well-being of the students. And I think it's wonderful that you all have that at each of the levels. So thank you for sharing those specifics.
This is time.
I just want to add something. I mean, it's no question for me, but I just want to add something that our students did a fantastic job for whatever they did. They continue to strive to do the work they need to do, and they fairly like very little sleep, basically. So, and all the principals coming here tonight talk about it. I feel like the students deserve everything they can.
Mrs. Gallagher.
It's Mrs. Edwards in Auburn. Okay, I have a quick question. Can you expand on what second step is specifically?
Second step is a social and emotional learning curriculum. It is, it's used at the preschool level. The program is very scripted where it teaches our students how to manage their feelings. If they're having a big moment, how to properly manage that, and what are some strategies for them to use as coping skills to manage those emotions appropriately. It also, of course, with their development, teaches them how to recognize facial and social cues from their peers and adults. And it also teaches them how to engage appropriately with their peers and adults. So it is crafted in a way where they'll engage in some songs, they'll read stories, and again, just practice those skills. And our classes where it is being piloting at the moment, the teachers will throughout the day remind students, remember we learned today about this feeling, and Aiden is having this feeling that we learned about, and what's appropriate strategy that could be used for Aiden to deal with this. I'm sorry, I just see your name. What's an appropriate strategy that Aiden could use to deal with this emotion or interact appropriately with his friend? Okay.
Other board members? So I always like to ask, this is the third presentation we've had, I believe, from principals this year, right? If I'm keeping track. Thank you. It's May, so hopefully keeping track. I always like to find out, are there things that you really want us to understand as a board that would be supportive, assisting you, think kind of areas of challenge or struggle or need? That tends to be where my brain goes, is where else can we, kind of, we see what we think are some of the needs, but, we rely on the superintendent's council, and they're bring us a lot of information. These presentations are helpful too, so.
I got it.
You
Gotta be careful about unleashing the full force of Dr. Perry.
All right, Dr. Martin.
Yeah, so we've tried to coordinate our approach to, we tried to be a funnel. Both Dr. Mahan and I working through the budget process to identify what the needs are in the schools. We presented that to the board and working with Ms. Sugars and Dr. Malash to share what we believe the priorities are. So the things we've identified are the priorities and what we look for and what the schools have indicated that they need in order to be successful.
That's helpful budgetarily for sure. Other non-specific budget pieces, but maybe things that, I think some of the, it's been a long school year, and I know it's the end of the year. It's tough. It's a good time of year, but it's a tough time of year. Anything else that from their presentations that maybe would be helpful, but as we move forward into our goals conversation?
I think at this time, we don't have anything additional to add. We just really wanted to, provide an opportunity for you to get a comprehensive view in terms of what's happening at the schools. There's so much that occurs, and we don't always have an opportunity to have that full picture and full perspective and view shared here at the board. So that was the intention today. That's been sort of the intention throughout the year. So I'm happy they had an opportunity to, I think, to share some of the great things that's happening in every building.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. That's helpful. Okay, other board member questions? All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our riveting meeting. Or perhaps return to the rest of your lives. Okay. So that was great. That we appreciate that. And now we move on to our preschool update. Very exciting. Dr. Mahan and Ms. Mallory.
Thank you, everyone. So this evening I will be presenting on the road to preschool expansion. I just want to begin by saying this is the first official presentation dedicated specifically to preschool expansion. While the conversations have somewhat crossed over during other conversations, this is the first specific discussion around preschool expansion. So through the last few weeks or months, I will say that myself, Ms. Mallory, the Director of Special Education, Ms. Edwards, who you just heard from, is the principal of the Malberg Early Childhood Center. Ms. Katsikis is a curriculum supervisor, and Ms. Trina Ragsdale is a special education supervisor. We have been working together to inform all of the steps along the way to preschool expansion and to converting our current early childhood center to a full day program. I always like to start each presentation with images of the students that we serve to remind us why we are making the decisions that we are making as we sit at the table. So around here, we always say that Malberg is the happiest place in the district, and you can certainly see that from the faces here. I've had several opportunities to visit Malberg, to cover classes at Malberg, and to engage with students. And I will certainly attest that it is the happiest place, but I also leave exhausted at the end of the time there. So I just want to highlight that there are parallel paths to preschool. So I hope that this presentation will provide some clarity as we go along this journey to prepare for full day preschool. So the first path is converting our current program from a half-day program to a full-day program. Path 1 has provided us with several opportunities, including curricular alignment, professional development, expansion of the current program, and preparation for the 23-24 school year. These things must happen as we prepare to welcome students in September. The sharing of the information above has unfortunately led to some misconceptions about where we are in the implementation of preschool expansion. Please know that Path 1, which is highlighted here, must be completed whether we apply for the preschool expansion grant or not. Other than shifting to full day, everything else are typical functions to prepare for the next class of students. These are all things that will need to occur whether we become eligible and receive the grant or not. So each of these areas, let me just highlight. Alignment of our current program. You heard Ms. Edwards speak to this in her presentation, but we want to ensure that our programs articulate well to the kindergarten program and that we are competitive to other local providers. We need to continue to ensure that our students are academically, socially, and emotionally prepared as they engage with their peers. Additionally, mentioned by Ms. Edwards in the previous presentation, professional development is necessary for everyone. As educators, we are lifelong learners. Staff has had professional development in creative curriculum, foundations, second step, and English as a second language to support our multilingual learners, excuse me. Hiring of staff. This is something that happens annually. We are currently in the hiring process. There will be more this year, but every year at this time, we are hiring staff. Expansion of the current program to full day. We need to discuss transportation. which again is a function that happens irregardless of the preschool expansion grant. And then also looking at our physical space. We've had many conversations with the board, not specific to Malberg, but across all of our schools in regards to space and capacity issues. Next, we have the application process. The application process, again, is not new to the Early Childhood Center. This happens every year, and again, it will happen for the 23-24 school year. And then lastly, an open house, which was hosted May 8th and May 9th for parents who were interested in applying for participation in the early childhood program. I share with you the timeline that is in place. Again, this is aligned to the timelines that have been used previously for the Early Childhood Center, including an open house for parents, a registration window, notification letters, commitments by families, and then registering through the district website. So then we move to path 2. And the reason why the image at the beginning showed parallel paths or railroad tracks is because these things are happening simultaneously. So as we move to path 2, at this time, we are currently educating ourselves on the preschool expansion grant. We have attended numerous information sessions. We are working very closely with the New Jersey Department of Education. We are working with NEARS and other preschool agencies. We have visited local preschools, and there is collaboration with the business office, human resources, private providers, the transportation department, and the New Jersey Department of Education and the county office. To expand upon these areas a little, these are the key areas in the preschool expansion grant: eligibility and enrollment, class elements, mixed use private providers, the financial implications, curriculum, and timeline. What we currently know about preschool expansion: we have 5 years to implement. We must service 90% of our universe within the 5 years. That means all 3- and 4-year-olds within Cherry Hill Township. We must serve 90% of them. The maximum class size is 15. The teacher-student ratio is 2 to 15. All special education programs will be full day, and they must be full day in order for us to be eligible for the grant. The grant also indicates that we need to have a 6-hour instructional day. We must use an approved state program or state curriculum, which Ms. Edwards already spoke to. We use creative curriculum. And the application is due in August with notification in September. So I mentioned that we have been visiting other preschools. So here is a list of several preschools local to Cherry Hill that we have visited. Why are we visiting these other locations? So we are attaining information in regards to the grant application. There are certainly some intricate details that we want to be familiar with prior to submitting our application to make our application more desirable. We also want to talk about the positions associated with the preschool expansion grant. Where are these individuals housed? How do they provide support not only in district, but to local providers? And what are their functions? We've also communicated with these other programs around their daily schedule, as well as the curriculum that they used of the options provided by the New Jersey Department of Education. And then to get further information on how they have worked to provide or to partner with private providers to acquire additional seats for their preschool program. So I started off by saying that we are on 2 parallel paths. I mentioned path 1, which is our current program with the exception of converting our current program to full day. And then the second path is applying for the preschool expansion grant. This slide indicates that we have intersectionality between the two paths. And I think that is where some of the confusion and misconceptions begin to occur. So when we talk about these intersecting paths, some of the items that we must address immediately are: one, full day program, the schedule, transportation, hiring of staff, and updating of curricular materials and resources. So what will be taught? Ms. Edwards already mentioned in the previous presentation that we follow the creative curriculum for preschool, which is a New Jersey Department of Education approved program. Here is a tentative schedule for a full day program. This is modeled after other strong programs, preschool programs in the state. And also, under the leadership of Ms. Edwards, the teachers have had training and received additional materials and resources to support the implementation of creative curriculum. For transportation, we need to finalize bus routes. We can't finalize bus routes until we know where the students will be getting picked up at. So we can't do that until the application process has been completed. We anticipate that in July, the bid dates for busing will go out. The start and end time of the program may be impacted by the availability of buses. So in the open house presentation that Ms. Edwards and I facilitated together, we made it very clear that the times for preschool currently are 9 to 2:30, 3 o'clock. Next year, we do not know at this time what the academic day timeframe will be. Contractors need appropriate buses to transport preschool students. I highlight this because our preschool students are not transported on the large buses. They are transported on small buses. Many of them are equipped with built-in car seats because students of that age need to be in car seats. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. Sorry. And then all of the routes will also have an aide on the bus to assist with loading and unloading students. So in the know, I call this in the know because as we are working on the parallel paths and then trying to make sure that we are not further muddying the waters when we talk about where the paths intersect, we want to make sure that people have all of the accurate information in regards to where we currently are in regards to preschool expansion. So the first one, information will be shared as in all major projects to the board, then to teachers, then to the community and other individuals who this will impact. The preschool program will continue to be play-based. I know that this was certainly a conversation when we were implementing full day kindergarten. I've already started to hear that we are moving away from that, and I just want to dispel that in this first, again, official presentation around preschool expansion. I also want to highlight the dedication, commitment, and advocacy on all of our behalf for students with individualized education plans is unwavering. The implementation of full day preschool will not impact that. The times, as I mentioned in the previous slide related to transportation for the 23-24 academic day have not been determined. That was shared also during the open house as previously mentioned. There will be a preschool committee. I'm hearing from more and more people who have a pretty strong voice in terms of how are we engaging with teachers, administrators, community members, and experts from the field to design the preschool program. We will have a preschool committee when it is appropriate. It would be premature for us to formulate a preschool committee, as that is one of the expectations with the preschool expansion grant, that you have a committee and certain voices on that committee. So similar to the implementation of full day kindergarten, we will be engaging with experts from the field. The one difference between the implementation of full day preschool and full day kindergarten is that full day kindergarten, there are not drivers of curriculum from the New Jersey Department of Education. There is certainly more flexibility in what we were able to design. The preschool expansion grant does have some parameters. It has specific curricular programs that we are able to use. Those curricular programs have certain parameters. So when we are reaching out to teachers, administrators, community members, and experts from the field, we are following those expectations. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone. There will be no aftercare programs, SAC, offered at Malberg, which is the school aid child care program. We have not offered that in previous years. We will be unable to offer that in the upcoming year. As mentioned on previous slides, transportation will be provided for eligible students based on district policy for grades K to 12. And if we are moving forward with preschool expansion, that policy will need to be revised to include pre-K 12. Should not be a shocker, we will be applying for the preschool expansion grant when it becomes available. However, it would be premature for me to share information, as I have seen other applications from previous years, but I have not opened the official application for 23-24 yet, as it is not available. And then lastly, we are participating with the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association and FEA for Transforming Early Childhood Leadership Institute in partnership with the Department of Education, Early Childhood Services Division. That includes administrators, teachers from the Early Childhood Center, and kindergarten teachers to support the implementation of a full day program. So we will be continuing to do that as we move towards preschool expansion. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Mahan, thank you for it's not an easy update, right? Because there's still a lot of open questions, and they're not open questions because you don't know. And they're not open questions because we haven't endeavored to find out as a district. It's because they are open questions. There are issues from the legislature in particular that we just don't know yet. And I know it's difficult. It's a difficult balance between trying to provide as much information as you can, and for us as a board to provide as much information as we can to stakeholders that obviously are concerned and want to know. We want to know as well. But sometimes you can try and come out with information that comes out too soon before you really have all the answers. That can present problems. So I appreciate the delicate balance you're in, and thank you for providing the level of detail you're able to provide. I do have one specific question, an area of questions that would be helpful if we had a little more information about it. With regard to private providers, it's pretty clear that's going to be an important element for us as we ramp up in the coming years, and it's a challenge. You said you've met with some other districts, some colleague districts, and one of the issues you've talked about is their engagement with private providers. Were you able to learn anything in any of those meetings that was helpful to you as far as successes that some of these other providers or some of the other districts may have had, and whether or not some of those successes may translate to the sort of landscape that we have here with regard to our private providers in Cherry Hill?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. And yes, we have learned some takeaways and a variety of takeaways. The one that I will say is the most important that we heard, not only from the other school districts, but also from the Department of Education, is we are really in the business of interviewing the private providers and making sure that they are meeting the expectations in which we are accustomed to within our current district buildings, and that they are willing to implement the curriculum with fidelity, follow our academic calendar, follow all of our policies, and work collaboratively with us. Many of them talked about, we do not want to enter into a partnership that does not go well. So really making sure that we are interviewing and working closely with all of the providers before we enter into an agreement. Some of the districts did have a comprehensive like Q&A or checklist to go through with the providers, almost like a contract. And they talked about making sure that we include our board solicitor as we enter into private partnerships with them. I will tell you that I have 2 visits scheduled to private providers in the community who are eager to partner with Cherry Hill Public Schools to provide additional seats for preschool. I will be going out to those locations with a representative from the New Jersey Department of Education to ensure that the facilities are in compliance with what we are required to oblige by based on the preschool expansion grant. So that is in the works. We have also already had a meeting where all preschool providers within Cherry Hill Township were invited to attend so that they could receive additional information about preschool expansion.
Is that, I mean, that meeting already took place or that the invitations are out?
That meeting already took place.
How many providers participated?
I would say approximately 16 providers participated, and Mrs. Winters and Mrs. Elmore Stratton also attended that meeting.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. And, you know, I could ask, you know, a handful of other questions about other areas, but I don't want to go contrary to what I said earlier. We just don't know a lot of the information, whether it be transportation or the status of the grant. So, you know, thank you for staying on top of it and giving us what you can at the time. And we look forward to all of this work going forward and providing full day preschool for students of the district more each year. And I know you're doing a great job setting this up. Thank you.
Mrs. Fleischer.
Thank you. Dr. Mahan, if you don't mind, just reminding at least me and maybe all of us about, we're talking about this first year, which is path 1, correct? And how many slots are, because when I was re-looking at the registration's already closed, right? And how many slots are there open for preschool for this year that will all be housed at Malberg? Am I correct? Or
So the current slots that we have open are for Malberg only. If we are awarded the preschool expansion grant, then we will look to partner with the private providers. I do not know how many seats that they currently have that they are willing to offer to us for current non-enrolled preschool students. So when I visit those facilities, I will be able to see, I mean, in the presentation, I mentioned the max number of students is 15. So, you know, if they have 5 classrooms, we can all do the math. We know how many seats that is. So we will be working to prioritize attaining as many seats as possible at those private providers, because we recognize that preschool is in high demand. So we want to be able to offer that.
so just as a follow-up, so we definitely have the 100 spaces that are available at Malberg that will be having these kids. And those are the people that, did we get over 100? Like how many people actually registered? Do you happen to know?
I do. I believe I shared that number in the Friday memo, but I just have to pull it up. I don't have it off the top of my head. Do you know, can you come up?
We had 342 applicants apply.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
And,
you, Ms. Edwards.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And so just because I think everybody sort of needs to know sort of the logistics, and I appreciate getting all the information beforehand. But so with those people, the difference between that, are they sort of going to be put on a waiting list? And then depending on if we get our grant, then we sort of put them into the slots. Is that the way that it will work?
Yes, that is the way that we anticipate that it will work. I believe that is the way it has worked in previous years, even as seats become available for the Malberg building.
Right.
When there is, every year, there is always a wait list for Malberg. Again, this is not unique to
Right, of
this
course.
year. But hopefully we will have additional seats and we'll be able to service more students.
And we don't, just again, just to remind myself, we are not sure at all when or if we're going to get the grant to actually allow us to expand into these private, into the private sector, if, if we can for this coming year, correct?
We are not.
Okay.
We will not know that information until we have completed the full application, gone through the grant review process, and then notified if we have been awarded or denied the grant.
And that all has to take place between now and like beginning of school, because we're talking about these kids could possibly have spaces. So it's really a problem of the state, like the timing is very crunched for all of this, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I just want to clarify that the notification does not come before September. The notification comes in late September. So one of the reasons why we need to make changes to our current program and ensure that it is a full day program prior to the start of September is so that we can secure bus routes for our students who are at Malberg, so that we can provide some consistency in terms of an academic day for teachers. And we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of families. It is an unrealistic expectation for parents to juggle childcare after the school year has started. So we want to be sensitive to that as well.
I appreciate all the, and I know we've been talking about it piecemeal and we've been getting so much information, but I appreciate everything in this perspective of when you had done this. My last question is staffing. How many more teachers are, I know that we've actually been able to hire somebody at least, right? How many more teachers do we need to fill the 100 slots that we have at Malberg? And then are we just, is that where we sort of stop, or I don't know if Mrs. Edwards or you?
So Ms. Edwards has been busy interviewing. We had posted for 5 preschool positions. Those positions have all been filled, or are we still waiting for one? One that we are waiting for to be hired. The other 4 have already been hired. There will be additional staffing that is associated with the preschool expansion grant. If awarded, there are certain things that we must put into place based on the number of students that we are servicing through the program.
Thank you so much for reviewing everything with me. I appreciate it, Ms. Edwards. Thank you. And congratulations on hiring those 4. I think right now that was one of the things we were worried about, and it's wonderful that we've been able to do that so far. So thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Mrs. Elmore Stratton, I think you're not just stretching.
Since Mrs. Fleischer brought it up and stole a little HR thunder there, but I was also that's right, she can, I'll allow it. But I was just gonna have, everybody look on tonight. We are gonna be approving some pre-K. So that is kudos to the HR team, kudos to Miss Edwards and her team that's been busy getting folks. And think back on, hey, recruitment is doing well. It's ramping up. Yay. Small wins, people, small wins. And just take a guess at why, but that's okay. Bye. All right.
That's all you got? A little promotion of HR over there? Okay. Mrs. Gallagher, you've got some things. Go for it.
So just to clarify on the staffing. The slide, it was with the other programs you've consulted with. There was a line that says like all other positions associated with preschool expansion, which you just kind of hinted on. Can you give an example or two of what those positions are?
So an example of that is and I get the name wrong, so Ms. Edwards, come to the microphone. I'll give one and then you know which one I'm talking about. So there's one position, for example, nurses. So for every, I believe it's every 100, no, I won't use nurses as an example. I will use coaches. For every 20 classrooms that we have, there is an instructional coach. So currently at Malberg, next year, I believe we are slated for 14 classrooms. So then if we add additional classrooms, 6 more at the private providers, then we would be hiring an instructional coach. One of the other positions that comes along with the preschool expansion grant, and I'll butcher it and then Ms. Edwards will get it together for me, is a community partner family liaison.
It's community partner liaison.
Okay. And that person works closely with the school and the building principal to promote programs and resources to families and to highlight all of the wonderful things that are happening through the preschool and making sure that students have all the supports that they need to be successful, students and families. Okay. There is also, I believe it is for every 300 students, an additional nurse. I started with that one, but we won't get to that. We have a little bit of time before we get to 300, but those are some of the positions.
Okay. And I don't know, Mrs. Sugars, I don't know. So obviously at the last meeting, Mrs. Sugars, you mentioned, does this preschool grant application go through the same department as the ROD grant application? Because
So the preschool ROD grant applications are being handled differently than typical ROD grant applications. So ROD grant applications typically go through the Office of Facilities. And so you do have to submit documentation to the Office of Facilities, but then you also have to go through what we affectionately know as EWIG, which is our typical grant application system. We also have to submit the ROD grants for preschool through that system as well.
so not even the ROD grants, just the application for preschool expansion. Does that go through the same system?
I
Or is that
believe
separate departments?
it's input into the same system, EWIG, which Mrs. Sugars just
Okay.
mentioned, but I believe the preschool expansion grant, I believe, is reviewed by the Department of Early Childhood.
Okay.
So,
Just curious because I know that the level of grants with the ROD grants were high. I didn't know if it was all through, like if somehow a backup in the system.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure, because I had mentioned the number of regular ROD grants. And then the preschool ROD grants, I believe, are going to have like two reviews. Like one is going to be for the facilities piece and looking at that. And then the other piece, I believe, is going to go through similar to the expansion grant, which is why I assume they have us submitting documentation in 2 separate places.
That's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Winters.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mahan and the rest of your team for the presentation tonight. Thank you for all the hard work you've been doing to prepare for this. 2 parallel tracks is not easy. And I do appreciate everything you and your staff have done working on this. And I just want to say that I feel like no matter which way this goes with preschool expansion, although as you all know, I am the board's resident optimist, so I am 99.9% sure we're getting it. But even if we don't, I still feel like this is a win for our kids because, you know, I had 3 kids go through the former Barclay program, now Malberg. And my last one was, as everybody kept saying on the open houses that Dr. Mahan and Ms. Edwards had, was a COVID baby. And so I think I'm very intimately aware of what happens when you don't have access to high quality early childhood education for your kids. And the ability to provide such a high quality program that will be connected as a bridge to our wonderful full day K program for the 100 kids next year is an amazing opportunity in and of itself, even if we don't get awarded preschool expansion aid. And if we do, and we're able to offer that to even more of our kids in Cherry Hill, I just can't help to think what a wonderful thing that's going to be for all of our students to get that start going forward, so that when they come into our elementary schools, they come into that kindergarten program, they are well prepared, both academically and with social emotional awareness for all the work that they're doing to be ready to learn at that moment. So I just want to really thank everybody who's been thinking about this as much as I've been thinking about it and working on it as much as we've all been working on it. I really appreciate everybody who's put their hearts into it, because I do think it's the right thing for our kids. I think it's the right thing for the kids this September and hopefully even more of them beyond. So thank you to everybody, especially administration, who's worked so hard, and at the Malberg building. I do appreciate everything you've done.
Mrs. Elmore Stratton.
Yeah, just being on the CNI committee, I'll co-sign what you just said, Ms. Winters. It has been a lot of back and forth, and kudos to you too for just, working with the team. I know we've been sending you question after question for you to go back to ask admin, and so that you're the one getting on their nerves and not us. So appreciate that from you. And then the only other thing I thought I had just for staffing space, because, I'm going to say it, does this come with help for Ms. Edwards and Mrs. Mahan? Dr. Mahan?
One of the requirements in the preschool expansion grant is a supervisor of preschool.
Okay, great. Because capacity. So we need to make sure there's support there as well.
And just to clarify for you, because, we're working together, CNI and HR as a team on this, all of these additional positions, required positions that Dr. Mahan and Ms. Edwards articulated, those will be funded out of the funding stream that we get for preschool expansion. So yes, they're required positions that we'll be adding, but they'll be funded through that funding stream. So the supervisor of preschool, the community liaison, the coaches, the nurse, all these things will be funded through those funding streams. So that's, it's the both and, right? We get the extra positions and we get the money to fund them with. So I think it's a win for our kids that will have access to all these additional resources and a director of early childhood to coordinate it all.
Okay, nice. And will we get an update past this on NCNI, or will it be here?
Similar to the implementation of full day kindergarten, I'm sure there will be numerous presentations to the board regarding the preschool expansion.
Awesome.
So yes.
Okay, any other board member comments, questions? So I have mine as well. So I think Dr. Mahan, I think you did a really beautiful job of presenting a lot of information, which we've been excited to, asking a lot of questions for months and excited to hear this full presentation. I think the piece that you talked about trying to kind of, if I'm saying this right, dispel myths and clarify kind of facts, I think has been really helpful. I want to respond to Mrs. Gallagher. The broad grants, Mrs. Sugars, those go through the School Development Authority. Is that correct? And Dr. Mahan, this preschool expansion, which is called a grant, turns in, if we are awarded it, turns into a funding stream going forward, but it's labeled kind of grant under budgetary purposes. That is reviewed and decided on in the department, the preschool in the Department of Ed, correct? A totally separate arm. So the School Development Authority is a completely separate department from the preschool department, which is the place where the money for the program comes from. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. It goes through the Office of Early Childhood Education.
Thank you. Okay, just to clear, that's really helpful. A few questions. So we've been in several community events, meetings, and a lot of them, I would say, actually PTA, where different PTA meetings where these questions have come up. And I just, and thinking about the Kingston meeting that we were at, the zone PTA meeting, and I just wanted to clarify, Dr. Mahan, currently, and I don't know if this is changing, are there bus aids on every preschool bus or some preschool buses? Because that was in the presentation.
I have to confirm with Ms. Sugars and with Ms. Linda King, but I believe that there are currently aides on the majority of the buses that pull into Malberg every day.
So if it's required as part of a child's IEP,
Yeah.
then there would be an aide on the bus.
So when we expand, there may be kids on buses where it is not either a requirement in their IEP or the students don't have IEP. So that could change the possibility. Is that correct?
Right now, our intention is to have an aide on every preschool bus, regardless of whether they're special needs or gen ed students.
That's helpful. Thank you. And then the other related piece, again, a bit in the weeds, but these are questions that have come up is there may be preschool students who are above the required legal limit for needing a car seat. And so it's possible that they may not every preschool student will need to be in a car seat. Is that correct?
So the limit is 40 pounds. So I would imagine most of them will be in a car seat. The buses, the type of buses that we're looking for have the car seats built into them. So they can either be used or they can be folded down and just used as a regular seat.
Thank you. Okay. And then just one more question regarding the kind of the typical day. So you gave us a schedule and it was fast. Maybe my eyes are just slow. I don't know. Could you just talk to us a little bit about the kind of sense of like playtime? I specifically will say, like, I was looking at it and I thought, well, that could be like, it looks like it's like kind of structured instructional or, time, but that could be like, maybe, I don't, and I'm asking, like, I remember my kids had like centers when they were in preschool, which that was a long time ago. So that may be a thing of the past. I don't know. So could you just walk us a little bit through kind of like the number of what may be learning experiences, but we might look at and kids might look at as kind of interactive playtime?
Yes, so in looking at the schedule, there are opportunities for, I'll call it whole group instruction, which is like group meeting that has the smallest amount of time during the day. It's approximately 20 minutes. Then we have choice time, which is what you're describing, where students are able to self-select into areas of choice. That's an hour. Then in addition to that hour, there is outdoor choice time, which one of my favorite sayings is there is no inappropriate weather, there's only inappropriate dress. So the need for preschool students to be outside on a daily basis is imperative. So there is approximately 90 minutes for that daily, broken up into an AM time slot and a PM time slot. There is opportunities for read alouds, which is one of my favorite parts of the academic day for preschool students, having text read to them and engaging them with literature. And then there is something that we have designated as limited choice in small groups. So where teachers will have an opportunity to pull small groups for instruction. There's 2 opportunities for that. So if a child is not in group with the teacher, they again will have an opportunity for choice in the area in which they want to play. That is approximately an hour a day as well. So a lot of flexibility in the schedule, a lot of opportunity for play. Ms. Edwards mentioned in her presentation, there was an image there of students in the dramatic play area. So we want to ensure that students have numerous opportunities throughout the day for socialization, engagement, understanding facial expressions, how to respond to their peers, how to respond to adults, and how to self-regulate.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's helpful because sometimes those of us who are not educators, which I'm not, might think of, instruction as like paper pencil, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, age appropriate interactional learning sounds like through a lot of opportunity for play, for creativity, for, with, with lots of learning. So, and hopefully not a lot of screen time like they might get if they were not in that type of environment. So, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Really helpful information. It was great. Very useful. Other last minute questions, comments? Long presentation section tonight. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Mahan. That was fantastic. And thank you, board members, for great questions. And Mrs. Sugars. All right. We move on to correspondence. Do board members have correspondence? Mrs. Gallagher.
I was able, sorry, let me get, I wrote something out. I was able to attend last Tuesday. I took my second grader to PABIS, which I found out is acronym for Performing and Visual Arts Society at East. And my daughter and I were just blown away at the talent that the students' artwork. They had photography, painting, mosaic, sculpture, it's like many different forms of art. And it was just a really lovely presentation of, students' ability to express themselves through art in various different forms. So she and I had a really nice time looking at all the different, expressions, and it was really nicely attended. Actually, a lot of families were there, and we had a really nice night. So we went to the Performing and Visual Arts Society last Tuesday. Nice.
Okay. Other board member correspondence, Mrs. Fleischer.
I was able to attend with many other of you to the Zone PTA lunch breakfast. And it was great because it was held at West. It's always actually one of my favorite things now. Anytime we have something at West like that, the students actually cook the food, and the breakfast was amazing, and it was wonderful. I want to thank the Zone PTA, Janet Hung, the president, and the executive board for inviting all of us and keeping us well fed, and to be able to, talk to all the principals and the administrators. And it's nice to talk to everybody and be in the schools. Thanks.
Okay. Mrs. Elmore Stratton.
Yes. So first shout out to Pavis. I was in that in West. Okay. That's not that many. But I was able to go to, and I'm actually looking at the calendar. I sadly missed Model UN, so I have to really check in with Aiden when I can to see how that went. But I know we had some other representation there, but I was able to make the PTA meeting at Sharp, and that was a really great experience. Just again, to hear from families, and it's like 2 seconds from my house, so that was a great one. So yeah, that was very good. Also participated in the Cherry Hill African American Civic Association in dual capacity for their scholarship luncheon reception. The organization was able to provide students at both East and West with scholarships ranging from $1,000 on up to $2,500 or $3,500. So it was a really well attended night. It was great that it was a lot of administration that came out to support the young people and their families as well. So just a very well event, and the board usually supports each year. So that, I think that's all.
Okay. Going around the table. Mr. Greenbaum.
Thank you. So last week I attended a work-based learning and community-based instruction program celebration. I joined Ms. Mallory in recognizing the accomplishments of these wonderful students. And it was a great opportunity to learn more about the program. They teach important life skills to high school students, and students 18 to 21 learn valuable work skills, both in the classroom and through work experience at local businesses. These programs have some really great success stories, and the staff that support them are truly amazing. And it was really nice to just share in the joy and excitement of the students as they're recognized for their accomplishments. I also attended Cooper Night of Cultures. I attended just as a parent, not as a board member, but I still want to give kudos for a fun event. We always enjoy the events there and they're done really well. We learned about the cultures of others in the community. And my favorite part, as always, was sampling some of the delicious food prepared by students, parents, and even a few of the teachers. And as always, thank you to the PTA staff and all of the participants for putting on another great event. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Winters.
I also went to the Zone PTA breakfast and it was phenomenal. I will go anywhere, as all board members know that there's food available. And building on that, I also went to the West International Cook-Off, which, speaking of food, I had 3 plates of food there. It was impossible to pick. We had an app on our phone. We had to vote on what was the best food. I found this to be an impossible task. But even better than just getting the food was also just having the candid conversations that I love to have with Dr. Morton and the West staff, who really gave me insight into what's going on at that school, a beat on the wonderful things that are happening, the amazing students they have there. So it's always just such a joy to visit schools in the middle of the day when you can really meet and interact with students and staff. It's just phenomenal. And so I volunteer for that event in perpetuity as long as I'm on the board so I can go and sample all the delicious things. I also, along with Mr. Mayor, went to the Rosa PTA meeting last night. It was a little bit sad for me because my 8th grader is graduating Rosa, but also a little bit happy for me because I have an incoming 6th grader. So it was really nice. And I just want to give the Rosa PTA a shout out. They had their Day of Awesomeness today. There are a ton of end of the year events coming up for the kids at the school. And it's just so nice because my oldest entered during the COVID year and is now exiting as things are really back to the new normal over there, to see all the joy at Rosa and to see all the phenomenal end of the year events and celebrations that all the kids are doing. A whole flock of Rosa kids came flying off the bus today in all their different colors for their different teams. And everybody was just joyful and enthusiastic. So thank you to the Rosa PTA staff and teachers for all the work that they do over there, the amazing work they do.
Okay, Mrs. Tom.
I went to the Kunnell induction on May 9th. As a parent and also as a BOE, I was very happy and I see all the young kids, the ones that always, working hard, but the one doesn't mean they're not working hard, doesn't get it. They just have to do more, I guess. I don't know, but it was a lot of students, 30 to 50 plus students on each junior and senior class. That was a lot. Even in spite of COVID that we have a lot of students who are very good students. All right. And then the other one I attend to is AAPI, Asian American Heritage Month, or Pacific Islanders. There was a good turnout. There was a multicultural student from Cherry Hill East came and performed. And there's 2 students from the East as well as the MC. They did a fabulous job. The weather was great. And I think Miss Marion was there as well. And then one was the other teacher from the West, Christy Lee, I think. She was invited as one speaker as well. All right. All good work. That's all for me.
Okay. Other correspondence? Okay, I have a few. So I was able to step in Mrs. Elmer Stratton Model UN to attend that, which was great. I didn't, because it was multiple schools, because East was hosting it for the first time in many, many years. I wasn't sure of who all of our students were, but I did recognize some of them, which was very cool, including Aiden and Matt, who was here earlier. And I'm not sure the other student rep was also there, but anyway, it was very cool. These kids were debating, representing countries, taking on real world issues, trying to, and representing states and trying to negotiate. So they had very serious topics like trying to prevent a war that China wanted to start, and trying to negotiate with China and other countries that were aligned, and how to come to agreements with them. There was a kind of I walked in on, I guess, a kind of a bit of a parity on, but parallel to some of our challenges, that we experience in this country in terms of different strong different views that, from state to state. Sometimes there was a promotion of trying to, I think, officially make the alligator a real recognized being, and the states that wanted to do that wanted to secede from the union, and the kids were laughing but also serious about the conversation. I mean, it was really they really grappled with the real world discussions and challenges that parallel what goes on in our true decision makers and leadership, our government. So, and the world government it was great. It was fantastic. Apparently there was a kidnapping in the middle of it. They mock kidnapped a person in the middle of a debate. It was great. Well done. So kudos to those kids and hopefully students, and hopefully that continues on. So Mrs. Elmore Stratton and I love that sharp meeting, the PTA meeting. I love going to these meetings. It's great. I did want to highlight a couple of things they said. So just piggybacking on some stuff you said, the principal shared that the students had a readathon, and in 1 week they read 56,000 minutes. I thought that was a lot of minutes of reading, especially from someone like me who it's not my favorite activity all the time. So it's a challenge. I have to kind of push myself. So I was really impressed. Every time we go to these PTA meetings, they also share about fundraising, and these PTAs are doing unbelievable jobs to raise money and that benefit the students. This year they raised enough money that every single student at Sharp will have a $10 gift card towards a book at the book fair. Every single student in the school. So talk about the PTA supporting, and in my opinion, I see this as as an equitable access to new books. I mean, it's just fantastic. And it was great. There were a lot of parents and guardians there. There were a lot of staff people at the meeting, which was also really fantastic. The topic of SAC came up, which I know Mrs. Elmer Stratton, you're really highlighting the need for us to bring to CNI, and that's happening. And kind of the great need for after school care. The topic of neurodiversity came up. Some of the parents talked about middle school, the impact of middle school redistricting on SEL. So great stuff. Shaka awards were fantastic. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar along with you. I think that was it. That's all it was. So anyway, that was great. So lots more to come. This is the time of year when we get to see all the hard work of all the students and staff come to fruition. So, all right, we move on to, got to get back to the other screen. First, public comment. So this public comment, there are two opportunities for public comment this evening. The first public comment session is for board action items only, which is items 11 through 20. There will be another public comment section for any school-related topic at the end of our meeting. If you are a student in the district, you may comment on any agenda item during the first public comment period. Please identify yourself as a student. And if you would like to speak now, please identify the agenda item and clearly state your name and municipality. We will alternate between speakers here in the room and those who are online. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak, and the timer on the screen will indicate the amount of time you have remaining. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the community to comment on matters relevant to the operations of Cherry Hill Public School District or within the authority of the Cherry Hill School Board of Education. The board welcomes diverse opinions on relevant matters. Under established federal law governing reasonable restrictions on speech in public forums, statements which demean individual community members or groups or which are irrelevant to the operations of the school district or repetitious will not be permitted. Community members who would like to present information not relevant to the school board are always welcome to communicate directly to the district superintendent, board president, and all board members via email or other alternative means. And with that, we will start in the room. And if there are any students who would like to approach the podium, you are welcome to. I have to exit the full screen and go back to the, okay, there we go. Okay, and we have a student, and I should clarify, I think I said only action items, but when it comes to students, students get to speak about any item in first public comment. You have extra privileges. So please go ahead, state your name and municipality.
Yes, thank you. My name is Aiden Rude. My municipality is Cherry Hill. And I did want to make one brief last public comment. I know I had the opportunity to speak as a board rep, but I wanted to keep that to board rep issues and take this time to make a public comment, just my personal experience, personal opinion on school matters. And first also to just, again, thank the board as one of the great things that we saw this year was the creation of this student public comment opportunity. I think it hasn't been used too much yet, but I think it will be. I know last year we had a ton of student public comments before there was a student comment period, and we had to stay up late into the night. So this is a little bit earlier, a little bit. We are 2 hours in, but we're not 5 hours in. So yeah, so anyways, I wanted to make a comment about something that I've referenced a couple times, and just kind of, this might be the last board meeting I'm at for a while. So kind of leave some parting words of bringing up a very relevant issue in schools across the country, which is that of LGBT plus rights. And, you know, with Pride Month coming up in just a few days, I think it's an especially important time to bring this up. And I just want to urge the board members, this is my call to action, as you're supposed to give in any speech. My call to action is to read, and maybe not 52,000 minutes, but read a few articles and read up on what is going on around the country regarding LGBT plus rights, specifically in education, because I'm guessing you're already aware, but in case you're not, there are a number of pushes across the country in bodies like this one to limit the rights of LGBT plus students. I've talked about this with other people and brought up maybe I should make a public comment. People said that would never happen in Cherry Hill. The school board doesn't want to get into that. And right now, I think that is the case. I certainly hope that is the case. However, across the country, very quickly, school boards like this one are suddenly getting into actions restricting students' rights. This cannot and should not happen on this school board. The actions being taken against transgender students just in the past few weeks are devastating to see as a person within that community. There's a student this past week who did not get to graduate, did not get to walk the stage because the student, who is a girl, was not allowed to wear a dress at her graduation because the school board chose not to recognize her gender and allow her to dress appropriately. So things like that are happening across the country. And I just urge you all to stay informed, because even if it's not an urgent issue right now in Cherry Hill, it could become one at any time. So that's kind of my big parting message. And thank you.
Thank you, Aiden. Thank you for always being open to speaking your mind at the board table and at public comment. And we appreciate hearing from students. It's so important that we understand the student experience. That's what we're here for. So thank you. Okay. We will go to the line. Looking to see if there's any students. Don't see any students. We'll go back to the room. Anybody else that'd like to approach the podium? Please state your name, municipality, and the action item that you are addressing. Thank you.
Short, Cherry Hill, action item 14.4. Under bank accounts. I think Cherry Hill might be stuck in a time warp. If you look down through the stipends for each principal, it's only $100 each. Each year we get millions and millions of more dollars. And I hate to hear these stories about teachers that have to put up their own money for supplies and stuff every year. I can't see how $100 for each elementary school is enough for each principal. I also question in 14.1 why Cherry Hill West why one person, the West job coach, gets $1,200. I don't understand. I don't understand what that is. Moving on to 18.17. You're about to accept a donation, which is in good for the Disney thing, but I'd also question what about the other estimated, let's say 15 students at West that get free and reduced lunch, and the 10 students that also get it at East, free and reduced lunch to afford to go to Disney. You're accepting a donation for one, but what about the other students? Maybe you should set up some type of donation thing for Disney for people that earn free and reduced lunch. Moving on to 18.4. The bids that came in for that job, quite drastically different, almost $100,000 lower than the bid. I'd hate to see the situation we were in 2 years ago when we had a contractor doing doors that couldn't finish it. I'm sure Ms. Sugars remembers that nightmare. So how can we have such a big swing in a bid from 381,000 all the way up to 550,000? Something to think about, because maybe Command Company from Egg Harbor might not be able to finish the job because it's not enough money. Thanks.
Okay, and we go back to the line, and I don't see any hands raised on the line. So we go back to the room.
Alana Yaris, Cherry Hill, item 12.2. I know that you're approving all policies, regulations, and there's a third one in that. For the coming year, I just want to make sure that all policies and regulations are looked at to make sure that they utilize gender neutral language and they focus on the DEI that we as a district appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And go back to the line. There are no hands showing as raised. And go back to the room. And there's nobody at the podium. I'm going to close public comment. And now we move on to our organizational agenda. I make a motion to approve the organization agenda items 11 through 15. Do I have a second? Dr. Rude, Mrs. Sugars, can you please open the online voting?
Okay, the online voting is open. If you have any abstentions, please let me know that now. Ms. Fleischer?
You need to abstain from 11.21 and 11.27. Thank you.
Okay, other than the noted abstention, we have a unanimous yes vote.
Okay. We move on to our action agenda, and we have curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Winters, can you please move the CNI agenda?
Superintendent recommends, and I remove the following. 17.1, approval of attendance at conference and workshops for the 22-23 school year. 17.2, approval of attendance at conference and workshops for the 23-24 school year. 17.3, approval of out-of-district student placement for 22-23 school year. 17.4, approval of agreements for 23-24 school year, 17,500 and under. 17.5, approval of professional service agreements for the 23-24 school year. And 17.6, approval of professional development service agreements for the 23-24 school year. Do I have a second? Ms. Fleischer, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, Ms. Sugars, can you please open the voting?
Okay, the online voting is open. If you have any abstention or no votes, please let me know. Okay, we have a unanimous yes vote.
Okay. Well, lucky for you, we're not yet at yours. And actually, there are no items for strategic planning tonight. Are you back in? Great. All right. Mr. Mayor, could you please move the business and facilities agenda?
I could. Superintendent recommends that I move the following. 18.1 approval of minutes from April 11th, 18.2 approval of minutes, April 25. 18.3 financial reports, 18.4 resolution of the award of bids, 18.5 resolution authorizing the use of cooperative pricing agreements, 18.6 resolution of the award of transportation, 18.7 approval of Cherry Hill McKinney Vento DCP&P students going out of district for the upcoming for 22-23 school year. 18.8 resolution approving the services agreement between the board and ESS for the provision of long-term substitute and replacement teachers, certificated teachers. 18.9 approval of food service management company meal prices. 18.10 appointment of food service management company. 18.11 resolution approving vended meals contract between the Yale School and the Board of Education. 18.12 resolution for the approval of contract with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. 18.3 resolution for the approval of a contract with prescription insurance provider. 18.14 resolution approving a dental plan with Delta Dental, New Jersey. 18.15 the resolution approving the vision plan with VSP. 18.16 the first reading of policies. 18.17 donations, and thankfully I was not logged out so I could read through that entire list. Are there any questions? Do I have a second? Mrs. Elmore Stratton. Mrs. Sugars, would you open the voting, please?
Okay, the voting is open. If you have any abstentions or no votes, please let me know.
Mrs. Sugars, I need to abstain from on bill list number 3, Jewish Federation of South Jersey, to avoid a conflict of interest.
It helps if I open the voting. I apologize. Sorry about that.
Mrs. Sugars, I also have to abstain from 18.2. I wasn't here on the 25th.
Okay, other than the exceptions noted, we have a unanimous yes vote.
I just want to mention that, every year we just approved a donation. We approve donations on a regular basis to people who choose to donate funds for specific purposes. And every year we kindly have donations to assist with the cost of the senior trip. So I think it's really nice that we have that. Last year, if I recall correctly, there were students who were, I think they were doing I don't know if they were shoveling driveways or raking leaves. They were doing some type of work in the community, and whatever money they got for that work, they took that money and donated it to the senior trip. So those donations are always welcome. And wherever they come from, they're a wonderful help. So I know I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to human resources. Mrs. Elmore Stratton, could you please move the HR agenda?
Sure, and I'm glad you brought that up about the donations, because I would hate for misinformation to come out into the community, and we definitely accept donations. I'll reserve my other comment for the end, but the superintendent recommends and I move the following: 19.1 termination of employment certificated, 19.2 termination of employment non-certificated, 19.3 appointments certificated, 19.4 appointments non-certificated, 19.5 assignment salary change certificated, 19.6 assignment salary change non-certificated, 19.7 other compensation certificated, 19.8 contract renewal certificated, 19.9 leaves of absence certificated, 19.10 leave of absence non-certificated, and 19.11 approval of the job description. Do I have a second? Mr. Mayor, are there any questions? Good, I wasn't gonna answer them anyway. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Winters.
It's not a question. I just wanted to point out because people asked that the new Marburg Early Childhood Center preschool teachers that we were discussing are right there under 19.3. So thank you to HR for all their awesomeness.
I told you they were good. So thank you for pointing that out. And more to come on that as well. They're working very diligently. So thank you for giving them that shout out. Any other questions? Great, Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, the online voting is open. If you have any abstentions or no votes, just let me know. And we have a unanimous yes vote.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we move on to policy and legislation. Mrs. Fleischer, can you please move the P and L agenda?
Sure, thank you. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. 20.1, the approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying, investigation decisions. 20.2, the first reading of policies P5330.04, administering an opioid antidote, P5305, health services personnel, PNR 5308, student health records. Also 20.3, the approval of a waiver of regulation 2340 field trips. Do I have a second? Mrs. Stern, any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars, can you open the voting? Thank you.
Okay, the voting is open. If you have any abstentions or no votes, no.
Ms. Sugars, can I abstain from 20.1, please?
Ms. Sugars, I also have to abstain from 20.1.
Ms. Sugar, please mark me as abstention for 20.1.
Okay, other than the abstentions noted, we have a unanimous yes vote.
Okay, thank you. And strategic planning, there are no action items yet. Hopefully moving forward will happen. And that we move on to new business. Is there any new business? Dr. Rude.
I wanted to bring up two things quickly that have been on my mind. The first, and we just approved a waiver for a field trip for Rosa. Right now at Rosa, 17 students are moving on to nationals for National History Day, which is amazing. I think it's one of their biggest groups. And I bring that up only so I'm very excited. My daughter's on one of the groups. The cost for each student to go to National History Day is around $600, which I'm bringing this up not because my daughter is going, but because I think largely like we will we'll pay for it. We're very proud of her. It's a pretty big financial burden for us. Like we live pretty paycheck to paycheck. And I think about others in our community that also struggle. So I just want to kind of bring back in I do this new business. I don't know if this is old or new, but kind of bring back to the table the kind of thinking we've talked about it before with support for non-athletic travel. So students that are entered into competitions from their various groups and clubs, and National History Day may not even like apply. It may be an outside thing that's different. But like we should, I think as a board, we should be thinking about the ability of our non-athletes to compete at the state, local, state, and national level, and who may struggle to make those competitions because their families just don't have the means. So whether it's through fundraising or through board action that we can actually help with, making sure that where there is money for competition travel, that we make sure faculty are aware of it and they know to ask for it. Because we have talked about that before. So I wanted to bring that up as a one point. The second point, community members have talked at our board meetings many times about some of the safety issues around traffic flow at different schools. where I live in Cherry Hills, there's a stop sign. This isn't right at the school, but there's a stop sign that people don't even like pause. They don't even like pretend there's a stop sign. They just blow right through. I mean, this isn't new. This isn't just Cherry Hill. We used to when we lived in Lower Marion. One time I took the kids and we went and we videotaped cars because people would just blow through the stop sign and people were like, "What do you do?" You know, some people are like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, that's great." Some people would swear. People are aggressive drivers, and I don't know if things have gotten worse since COVID, but people are nasty out there. And I've noticed we've had multiple incidents come to our attention from students or family members or people not associated with the school getting into accidents around the school zones. And if anybody's been to Rosa drop off, passing on the right is done so aggressively that it's like waiting. I'm just waiting for there to be an accident, just waiting. And I really think that it'd be something to think about I don't think this is I don't know how the school district does this in and of itself, but maybe it partners with the township and the town police department to study the traffic patterns around the schools and to look and see if there are ways of improving safety, improving traffic flow. Like I know at Woodcrest School, you see about a half dozen people in yellow coats helping kids cross the street because it's a very commuter friendly walking school for a lot of kids in the neighborhood. But I just, that's not the case at Rosa. And driving through East, you have the same thing because you have you have two lanes of traffic. One of the lanes goes away and then comes back. People fly through there, like they're on a mission to kill somebody. Like it's insane. So I know the public's brought it up. I think it would be great for us to maybe if there was any way to partner with somebody to look at some of the safety around commuting around the schools is actually a pretty smart idea. I think people could probably come up with examples from any other school in the district. So those are the two things I wanted to kind of bring up just for for you guys all to hear, and maybe ideas percolate and somebody has a brilliant idea to make things better. That's it.
So I can add to that. I know you weren't able to attend our last action meeting. I gave an update on the first meeting of what is going to be a standing committee, a school safety committee. It's a partnership committee between the district, zone PTA, and Cherry Hill Police. And the overarching mission of the committee is to do just what you said, to try and identify opportunities, best practices to improve not just student safety entering and exiting schools at the beginning and end of the school day, but also expanding what Cherry Hill Police already does with regard to pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, vehicular safety. We had a discussion about some of the schools in particular. Rosa, is just legendary, unfortunately, for the wrong reasons with regard to the difficulties because of the design of that small little loop. Cherry Hill Police is well aware of that. They would also they recognize that the township is a huge partner here. We can't do any of this alone. And we can as a district, and I know we will communicate as best we can. We can improve communication. We can always talk. We can find better ways to help our staff talk to students and communicate with parents about the importance of pedestrian safety and bike safety and just being aware of surroundings. And that's not just with regards to what happens when cars and other big things are moving, but it's just about overall safety and awareness, or about other people as well. Cherry Hill Police, though, they're well aware that they can't do it alone. The township has to be a partner. Together, we feel that we can come up with some very strong practices, ideas, communications, different communication strategies, and also work with the township with regards to planning whether that means potentially changing some of the painting and routes to increase visibility and awareness of the safe zones around the schools, together with the township and even potentially together with the state, because some of the schools, some of the roads are state funded roads. So what your concern and what you hope to happen is beginning to happen, will continue to happen. Your observations with regards to people driving, quite frankly, like maniacs too often is nothing new. It's probably getting worse. I noticed it got worse as soon as the red light cameras were taken offline. People they don't respect red lights. That it's frightening. It's frightening for all of us, frightening for those of us who have new young drivers that are out there that don't know what can happen. So, it is good to know that the partners that are aware or engaged will continue to engage. Stakeholders will be engaged. The community will be a big part of this. We had just one meeting because we're going into the summer. We will probably continue to meet over the summer, and then we will really ramp up communication efforts as the school year approaches, and then begin to expand so we can make sure we can get as many good ideas as we can from wherever they come and implement them, hopefully to the benefit of the students and the staff and the drivers.
Okay, thank you for the new business. Other new business or old business? This is Elmore Stratton. Are we on new business?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And it's not about traffic, sorry. Those red light tickets were pricey. I got a few. Okay, sorry. So a couple things that I want to just put on our radar that we could possibly, if we get time to go into the summer committees or whatnot. But I would love to see something that Ms. Arroyo had brought up prior to her departure from the board. And I think we discussed it in CNI, is just doing, if we can consider doing some equity audits around the district in terms of looking at all of our policies, everything, to make sure we're using the right language, the right speaking. That's a heavy lift for, for our team to do. And I would hate to put that on the admin team, but maybe we can look at using a consultant or something that could just go through and make sure that we're, as Aiden said, crossing our eyes and dotting whatever that saying goes. So I just want to make sure that's on our plate. And if you could add that as some time for us to talk. Another thing that just in terms of moving forward, it definitely can't be for this year, but I was wondering if we can either clarify or maybe talk about it in policy about just the equity of representation in graduation ceremonies. So I know there were, West does a phenomenal job of recognizing all of their culture clubs and allowing the students to recognize their culture clubs. East does as well, but I would love to see us have just a unifying policy on who can and who can't, how that works out. Because there's been some discrepancies in the past between the two high schools. So I don't know if that gets brought up in policy or in committee or whatever, but I would love to put that on the radar as well, because I'm not on that committee. And then another one that sparked from our last meeting where we were talking about the calendar for the 900th time. I really was just thinking about, do we have any policies on what gets added and what doesn't, what's recognized and what's not? And not because I don't want to do it. So let me be clear with that. But I would like us to be clear with, these are the, I guess, these are the requirements for us to say it's worthy of a school day off or a half day or any of those things. Only bringing it up because there are several groups that are utilizing small things like that to spark huge controversy. And so I would love to see us be ahead of the game when it comes to that. So I don't know what that looks like in policy or what that looks like with Ms. Wellington, but I just wanted to put that on the docket for possible next meeting. And then lastly, just as we're moving forward with having the student reps. So this is another one that's kind of close to my heart. I love student reps. The state mandate is amazing, but it's also horrible, just as horrible as HIB, because they gave no guidance on it. So I would love to see if maybe in the future, us as a board, we can really take as much time as we're taking in the community, if there could be possibly interaction between the board chairs with the reps prior to them sitting down, just so that we can review expectations. We can review what their time could be used for, what we would love to hear, because I think Aiden has been very, this group in particular, actually, this set of last board reps has really changed the game when it comes to reporting out. And they've added things that I think are important, like youth voice but we need to set the standard for that. So, and with that statute for those young people to be on boards, it doesn't speak about how we prepare young people to be leaders on boards. So let's maybe talk about that as a board, what that looks like, or what that introduction to our team looks like. Because it's bad enough that we don't get the chance to meet or we're together, but could we at least set our young people up for success? And then I have one thing for old business. So go ahead.
Okay. I think you threw a lot of work at Mrs. Fleischer. Mrs. Fleischer, you want to comment?
I'll catch it. Yes. So thank you, Mrs. Elmer Stratton. But because Aiden had mentioned about the bias wording and some of our policies, and also Ms. Elmer Stratton had brought that up. And I hate to call on Mrs. Wethington because she is actually, and she specifically and her staff have already done a really great job of any of the policies coming through. And Mrs. Wethington, I wonder if you could speak on that, because we have talked about that in P&L as far as anytime you're reviewing any of your policies, or even when you've taken like this the code of conduct, right, and made sure that all the wording was non-biased. Like that's part of the work that you've already been doing whenever you're reviewing policies. Am I right?
Yes, so when we're looking at new policies, we are eliminating references to him, her, she, he, things that are gender specific. We're trying to make everything gender neutral. That's like a standard review that we're doing as we're updating policies. There are policies that have not been updated yet, so they probably have the whole language, but that's the standard as we're doing our review as they're coming through the P&L committee.
Sure, thank you. And I thought both of you would like to hear that it's an ongoing effort in our part to create that for our district. So it will be continuing, and thank you, Mrs. Wellington, for talking about that. And the other things that you brought up, I will look into. Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business for board members? We'll come back to that in public comment. Gonna stick with the new business. Any other old business? Mrs. Elmore Stratton.
So wanted to bring up again, and this probably goes in CNI. I don't know. She has nothing to do. She can totally take this on. But just a consistent theme as we're rounding out the end of the year that I feel like has just been heard and heard and heard. Do we need to go back and think about a climate and culture position that's for the district to help out some of the staff that is really like struggling to, handle some of the behaviors that are just out of the norm, or just exacerbated because of young people being locked indoors for so long for the last 2-3 years. So I don't know where that begins. Maybe HR, maybe not. Looking at Miss Adrian, but she's like, I ain't gonna be here. So, so I just need direction on that from our chairs on if we can revisit it. How does that get approached? Would that be a conversation with our super or whatnot? And that was something that I had brought up a while ago and hadn't heard anything back on that. And then I think I'm good. I think that was my only one.
So I think I just want to say in terms of our meetings. I mean, there's some very exciting and important ongoing topics. I want to say that typically many of what we're talking about, many of the topics we're talking about are things that get addressed in committee. And I know we've made an effort as a board to have committee chair meetings on a more regular, consistent basis. And I think that's made a big difference. And I just want to continue to encourage not just committee chair meetings, but committee chairs, to be sure to, that this is a committee chair connecting with your committee members. I'm having a hard time speaking. I'm sorry. Connecting with your committee members is a great place to generate these discussions. And like, if you're not on the committee, absolutely emailing committee chairs, speaking with committee chairs, reaching out. I think like this is where we help to generate our own kind of vision where we're moving. And the committee chair then has those, discussions with the liaison. So, I mean, really good stuff. Exciting. So keep it up. And, I think as our committees continue to meet, we're coming on to our goals discussions. So this is a great time to raise all these topics. So.
Yeah, and for us, I bring it up here in new business old business, so it's not the right space for it to go. But I also want to find the space for, people in the public bring us things all the time, their concerns, and I want to make sure they know that we've heard them and that we'll bring them up to have a discussion about. And oftentimes, like you said, that happens in committee, but not everybody tunes in not tunes in. Everybody doesn't come to committee, and we're not actually required to make that, a public meeting, but we do because we love people to be informed. So I don't know. I just feel like this is a space to do that, but I definitely know that work has to happen in the committee level.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Great.
And also remember my second thing.
Oh,
Sorry.
go
My
for it.
second
Go
old
for it.
business piece. Dang it, lost it again. Where was it? Oh, yes, thank you. Just want to revisit something that someone brought up maybe 2 meetings ago, about, and Aiden kind of touched on it this evening, about us possibly looking at just making a section earlier in the agenda that's specific to students that would like to comment. If we're going to allow them to comment on any topic area, can we push it up? I don't know if that's a Paul question in terms of parliamentary procedure or where things go in the agenda, but that seems to be a running theme of, the comment time for them is a little bit late, because we just love to talk about all the things we do and they have to wait. So I don't know if that can be earlier, or if we can discuss that moving forward again, because it was brought up before.
So just to respond to that, so we did have robust discussions about that. And at the time, the board's input was to add a third public comment period, which would be student only, felt a little onerous. And so therefore, the decision was first public comment is usually significantly earlier in our meeting, and that would be a place for students to comment on any topic. That's where we landed last time. We certainly can have that discussion further. I don't know if we want to launch into that as, Okay. Fair enough. I think we can add that to, a discussion item on our agenda, but I think, we'd have to really think about, are we adding a third public comment period specifically for students, or, because like I said, we have the current practice that we got to. So.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, but again, make sure that we hear you, we know what it is, parents, we know it's late. We're all parents. So just letting you know that we're not letting that fall off.
Okay. Mrs. Tong, do you have another old business item, agenda item?
I'm just carrying over Miss Corinne. Talk about the student comment. I know sometimes it's difficult to add another one, but I think if we could make the student comment on the thinking about so that they can be, they know exactly what time they can be on. They're not doing something, all of a sudden they can jump onto the to our comments area. I was just thinking about right after, just my thought. Right after this one, was it fall recognition? No, yes. Oh, student comment, is that student one? The student rep, right before that or after that, that way they know like 6:30 or 6:45 before 7 o'clock. There's a common area for them. Make it steady for them.
Okay, yeah, so we have the discussion, we can consider that option. I have a little bit of old business I just want to touch on, and I think the board has, been kept more abreast of this, but I just want to mention it in a public meeting, that we are, in the process of, making our determination to bring forward an interim superintendent, candidate, and a recommendation. And so that's on the docket. That should be forthcoming rather soon. And also want to mention that we are in the final stages of making decisions on our national search firm that we would be moving forward with hiring. So I'm excited. We've made great progress with those things. Lots of hard work from a small group and bringing it to the larger group. I think I'm encouraged by the engagement. There will be lots and lots of stakeholder engagement when once we have the national search firm in place. All the firms every firm we spoke to does a tremendous amount of, makes a big effort to engage and have very thoughtful effort, thoughtful and thorough efforts to bring forward right fit candidates for our school district. So just wanted to mention that is in process. More to come soon. And I believe that is it for our old business. And we now move on to our second public comment. If you would like to speak now, please clearly state your name and municipality. We will alternate between speakers here in the room and those who are online. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. The timer on the screen will indicate the amount of time you have remaining. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the community to comment on matters relevant to the operations of the Cherry Hill Public School District or within the authority of the Cherry Hill Board of Education. The board welcomes diverse opinions on relevant matters. Under established federal law governing reasonable restrictions on speech in public forums, statements which demean individual community members or groups or which are irrelevant to the operations of the school district or repetitious will not be permitted. Community members who would like to present information not relevant to the school district are always welcome to communicate directly to the district superintendent, board president, and all board members via email or other alternative means. So, as we begin public comment, I know we always have our students be the first opportunity, the first opportunity of public comment. And Aiden, I would love to offer you as approaching the podium. There are no other students in the room, I don't think. Actually, there is. We have one other student in the room who is not at the table. So we will go with you in the room and then we'll alternate online. If you are a student online and you'd like to make a public comment, I would ask that you please put an S after your name so that we know it's you. And 3 minutes, your name and municipality, go.
Thank you. Aiden Rude, Cherry Hill. This won't be like a scripted public comment or my personal opinion. This is now going back to just my role as student board rep. And I think this is actually a good example of what some of the board members were saying about need for clarification of the student role, because I have been unclear all year, including tonight, when exactly I am allowed to speak. So, for example, during new business, the student board rep cannot introduce new business, that is clear, but can the student board rep comment on new business during the new business period? According to my interpretation, yes, but perhaps not. And so that is something that could be clarified to the student board reps. As mentioned, there's a law that was passed by the New Jersey state government that requires a student representative as a non-voting member of the school board. Again, from my interpretation, a non-voting member of the school board would have every responsibility and role of a school board member except voting, meaning participating in the discussions at every other point. But again, perhaps that is not the intention, in which case, it'd be great if the students knew that. So I definitely would agree with the board members who said that more guidance for student board reps would be good, because I definitely have had to kind of just throw things at the wall and see what sticks, what's allowed, what I'm supposed to do. And I think it would be helpful. Emily's nodding. I think we would love more guidance from you guys. And then also, I just wanted to add from another previous discussion from old business about the field trips, just a student perspective on that. Model United Nations, which we heard about earlier, being super successful at East, they actually had that come into play this year, where previously we had no support like a sports team would for bus funding, and going to a conference at a nearby school would be like $40 sometimes, or $30, whatever it would be, because school bus prices are so high, plus the cost to actually attend the conference, plus like food and all of that. This year, our advisor went to the principal and said, like, hey, we're competing. Can we like almost treat this like a sports team? Can we get our buses covered? They worked it out, and a ton more students were able to attend Model UN. Model UN grew more than ever. It was a big success, but I don't think that's how it should work, that like the club advisor just randomly goes to the principal and they work something out. I also don't think that it's how it should work, that as Dr. Rude mentioned, students are like fundraising for their own fees for National History Day. They just qualified for this national competition 2 weeks ago. So it's not like they could prepare their families like for this cost they knew would be coming. It's all of a sudden. So it's very like kind of scattered, and it gets figured out. Like another example, the newspaper has a big convention trip every year, and there's like this funding that will help if you can't afford it, but it's not clear where that comes from. It's people kind of just scatter and figure it out at the last minute. The board should definitely work to have a more organized system of making sure equitable access to student extracurriculars is funded.
Thank you, Eden. You made it in. Okay. Any other students online? Okay, if not, the first, I don't know. Okay, there it is. The first name I see online is John Howlett. If you could kindly say your name and your municipality.
Yes, good evening. John Howlett, Cherry Hill resident, Kingston Elementary School parent. I'm extremely disappointed and frustrated with the special education department for dropping the ball with the autism support classes. My son and other West Side autism students from Kingston Elementary School were just informed late last week that they will be sent to Beck Middle School. This is completely and totally unacceptable on numerous levels, both socially, academically, and logistically. They were all slated for Rosa until the overcrowding issue, which we're all aware of, was created. So instead of a handful of special ed students being included, they were cast aside while hundreds of neurotypical students were added to Rosa. These students had Rosa teachers at their IEP meetings, and given every indication that they were going to Rosa, we were also informed of the Rosa open house night, but never informed of the Beck open house night we're able to attend. As a special needs parent, we need time to plan and update our students, prepare them for the future, much more so than neurotypical students. This cannot be done and was not done by the district, who gave us little to no consideration or input in this. The ride from the West Side with numerous stops and pickups will be over an hour, double or triple the time that the neurotypical students will experience on the bus, and again, totally unacceptable. My son and others work tirelessly with countless hours of therapy in the classroom and at home to make friends at Kingston, and will now lose all of these connections as their friends are going to Carusi or Rosa. Tough for a neurotypical student, yet devastating and socially detrimental and crushing to a student on the autism spectrum who has worked extremely hard to make friends and connections. My son and others from Kingston do not know a single student at Beck Middle School, yet if they do make friends there, within 3 years, they're almost assured that all of their friends will move to Cherry Hill High School East, while they will go to Cherry Hill High School West, which has the autism program. I'd like to ask the board, and especially Cherry Hill Special Education Department, why Carusi is not the main ASD middle school, so that the children on the spectrum can attend middle and high school with the same group of students, and then set them up for social inclusionary, and developmental success. It is extremely frustrating and disappointing that this matter is not overlooked and treated as outliers in their own community. In fact, there are no autism middle school classes on the entire west side of Cherry Hill. All classes are at Rosa and Beck. This is completely and totally unacceptable for a district of this size. I ask the board and the district to please review the ASD classrooms and programs and strongly consider moving or adding them to Carusi and the west side, or at the very least, consolidating all classes to Rosa as a central hub. Special needs children deserve more. The west side and Carusi communities deserve more. The Cherry Hill School District can and must do better to support, embrace, and enhance
Mr. Howlett.
the special
appreciate
needs
your comment.
community.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the room.
Alana Yaris, still Cherry Hill. Sorry if I'm not coherent. I drove for 7 hours today for work. During the preschool presentation, it was said that 30 minutes would be added to the school day to make the day 6 hours. And then there would be 45 minutes of rest/quiet time. I have a student currently in the full day program, which is 5.5 hours, and I'm unaware of any rest or quiet time that's required by the state. But once you go over that 5.5 hour threshold, there's then a requirement of 45 minutes. So we've added 30 minutes of the day, 30 minutes to the day to then actually take away 15 minutes of instruction time, because we're adding 30 minutes and also adding in 45 minutes of rest/quiet time. So to me, that means 15 minutes of lost instruction time, if that could be clarified. That's all I have. Thanks for all your work.
Okay, can we go back to the line? And the next hand up is William Mandia. If you could please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Bill Mandia. I am a Cherry Hill resident. I want to pick up on the comments that Dr. Rude made earlier about the traffic situation at our schools, and just share our experience with it, as I hope it'll motivate the board and the district to address the unsafe conditions that exist. A little more than a month ago, my wife and I received a phone call that no parent ever wants to get. An administrator at Carusi called to let us know that our son, a 6th grade student, was en route to the trauma center at Cooper because of a serious accident that happened at school. What we learned on the way to the hospital was that he had been struck by a school bus at dismissal time while on his way to track practice. As I'm sure you can all imagine, the next 45 minutes while I sat helplessly in traffic on the Schuylkill Expressway on my way to Cooper were the longest and most harrowing of my life. And my wife would tell you the same about her experience trying to get to the hospital from this side of the bridge. When we arrived at the hospital, we were told our son had suffered numerous severe injuries, was in critical condition, had been placed on a ventilator. The next several hours and days were anguishing, and we were overwhelmed by a swell of extreme emotions: fear for our son, concern for the students and staff members who witnessed this horrific accident, and questions as to how and why this type of accident could have happened. On the positive side, I can't say enough about the overwhelming support we have received since the accident from our friends and family in the Cherry Hill community. And I do want to be clear that post-accident support includes Dr. Birdie and the faculty and the staff at Carusi, who have been nothing but kind and accommodating to us as we get our son back to school. But on the flip side, I find it deeply disappointing and disturbing that so many of those same members of the community who have supported us shared with us their own fears and concerns about the traffic safety issues. And I think the discussion here tonight underscores just how serious of a problem this is. So while I appreciate that this district has many great academic, athletic, and extracurricular programs, and things like pre-K are great, I think it's important to not lose sight of the fact that the #1 duty the school district has is to provide a safe and secure environment for all of the students. So to that end, I encourage this board and the district to take immediate action to ensure that there's adequate safety measures at the schools during loading and unloading and arrival and dismissal times. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we go to the room.
Yoni Yaris, Cherry Hill. Want to piggyback on the concerns about public comment. Tonight, I think there's still NJSLA testing going on at the high school. I am not yet at high school, so that also impacts students in terms of the night. Would have been really helpful to move public comment up for them, because then we're hindering performance and that the district is graded on, as much as those of us who cannot stand standardized testing. It is the nature of the game we currently play. If it's possible, could we move first public comment ahead of all the presentations, especially if the public cannot comment about the presentation that had been presented on prior to first public comment, as a way of easing that stress. Going on to the concerns Aiden and Emily and others in that who have sat in these seats for all these years, I really want to piggyback and say that we need to clarify the roles. I agree with Aiden's interpretation that they are non-voting members, which means that they have all the duties of an ex officio member, which includes being able to speak whenever they so choose and not being relegated to public comment if they're sitting at the table. So just to really work on clarifying that, and also keeping it. Thank you to Aiden, Emily, and the rest of the Vivian and the rest of the team this year. You have raised the caliber of student representation in our district that I hope we never go back to what it was in the past. You have come to the table and done everything that when I was a student in the district all those years ago that we had hoped to have happen. And to see you guys step up and take that leader makes me very hopeful, and thank you. And you're all going to do really well going into the future having done that. Ms. Stern shared about the where we are in the progress. I believe when Dr. Malash announced that he was stepping aside, we talked about a 30-day overlap. I fear that we're not going to have that 30-day overlap unless an emergency board meeting is scheduled in the next week. We're quickly approaching the start of June. As crazy as that sounds, we're 19 days away from the school year ending. And if this interim wants to be able to get into the buildings when there are students around, there are 19 school days left to do that, which I think is really important for building up that cohesiveness. And thank you all. I know there are a lot of things going on, a lot of things being thrown at you, and we do appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, now we go to the line, and it's a phone number that ends in 788. I believe it might be Dr. Podowitz.
Well, my name is Jeff Podowitz, and I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. In the April-May 2023 AARP magazine, longtime professor of Jewish studies at Emory University, Deborah Lipset, was interviewed. She stated, with most racial and other prejudices, people simply look down upon the other. But anti-Semites punch down and punch up simultaneously. They look down on Jews and see them as lesser human beings, dirty. And they look up, seeing them as more powerful, as conniving, and as a threat to the anti-Semites' well-being. Okay, she goes on to state that anti-Semitism, like other forms of prejudice, is a canary in the coal mine and a threat to democracy. When I was in junior high school, I looked through a book my father brought home from World War II. Under the topic racial policy, the book stated, when Lay declared 4th of December 1942 that it was.
Sorry, could you please make clear the connection between the current school operations and your comments, please?
Yes, I can. Will you give me extra time when I do it?
No, you will not get extra time.
I will not get extra time. The comment and the complaint is this. Okay, but thank you for breaking in on me. All right, a couple of years. Okay, the comment is this: this board, all right, to promote the success of, in one of its policies, 2100, the board commits the school district to promote the success. In parentheses, you give a group of students, and in parentheses, you put students who have a racial identity other than white. And I asked you before, over a year ago, will you please remove what's in that policy? Because you want to know something? My feeling is that since you didn't let me set this up, my feeling is that I support you all. Board members are here to support all the students, no matter what their race is, no matter what their colors is, and support their success. This policy says you don't, because it says specifically students who have a racial identity other than white. Something like that happened to me when I was younger. all right, where something was said to me and you want to know something, it was blown off and someone put a complaint for me and nothing happened. And that's what I was going to get in. That's the whole story. But you guys, why don't you remove that? Because that shows it is what you say it is, that you support you want to promote the success of students.
Thank you, Dr. Podowitz.
No.
And we move on to next in the room.
Rick Short, Cherry Hill. This is not meant to demean Dr. Rod. I actually agree with Dr. Rod, but but I want to say that when you bring up a topic today, he just brought up a topic about helping other students on other events. I brought up a topic of helping kids go to Disney. The same thing keeps coming up, but guess what? We're both on the same page. Everything he's saying is hot air because nothing happens. Everything I just said is hot air. And I agree with Adrian Rude too, that everything is just hot air because nothing happens. We don't support disadvantaged children to go on a Disney trip. We don't support kids to go on to trips. He just said it. We're not supporting kids to go on trips that are sponsored by different things. So can we figure out a way to support kids that go on different trips? Because we know that 10 kids at East are on lunch, free lunch. We know 16 are about on free lunch. So if you can't even afford a lunch, how can you go to Disney or any of these other things? And getting back to the word hot air, our whole discussion tonight about bus safety is it's hot air. It will be hot air. Unless Mr. Mayor has something written for every individual school, where every cone is, where every crosswalk is, where every pedestrian sign is, where every teacher's positioned, everything will be hot air when we're done. And we don't want it to happen again. I don't need to go into the story about how Carusi has buses coming in one way during the day and then picking up in the afternoon coming the other way. It makes absolutely no sense. And if you look at different schools across the United States, buses don't come in different ways during the day. They all come in the front way. Boom, they come around the front. The front of the school is like 350 feet. I just measured it. So why are we bringing buses coming in one way, another way? And does the Cherry Hill police really know what's going on in California? And do they really know what's going on in Virginia? Do they know what's going on in Pennsylvania? So again, it's going to be a hot air if we don't have something in writing. It won't mean anything. And we don't want it to happen again. We don't want another bus accident to happen again. Thank you.
And we go to the line, and Cherry Hill Zone PTA you're up.
Good evening. First, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the student representatives from West and East, Elizabeth, Emily,
I'm
Aiden,
sorry,
and
can you just say your name and
oh,
municipality?
I'm sorry, it's Janet Hung from Cherry Hill. So I wanted to thank Elizabeth, Aiden, Elizabeth, Emily, Aiden, and Vivian for their service to their respective schools and their contributions to the Board of Ed meetings. It was a pleasure to hear your reports during the meetings. Second, I wanted to thank Dr. Mahan and Ms. Edwards for the presentation on preschool. I apologize if I missed this information. Will the district be hiring additional positions in the transportation and registration departments to manage the increase in student population? If the district is not planning to hire additional personnel for transportation and registration, I respectfully request that you consider adding these positions to these departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. In the room, nobody at the podium. We go to the line. I see Jim and Lori Neary. Name and municipality, please.
Hi, Jim Neary, Cherry Hill. I just wanted to reiterate a previous caller's comment about the autism support classes. I mean, again, it's very disappointing as, you know, I know myself and Lori had both spoke to this topic when it was voted to move Russell Knight to Rosa, and we mentioned how it would significantly overcrowd the school. It is disappointing that they now cannot fit the additional autism support class to accommodate just a few students over at Rosa. So now several West Side children are being affected from Kingston Elementary School and are now being transported all the way across town to Beck Middle School. Oftentimes, our special education students are the students who are getting bused all over the district. It seems time and time again, there's no forethought to how it affects these children. Children with autism can be easily overstimulated. What are we going to do to take into consideration when we have a child who spent a 40-minute bus ride, who arrives at school not ready to learn, when they already have challenges regulating their emotions, when they already have challenges learning? I would like to see the special education department maybe reconsider, or at least if going forward, they're not going to be expanding it to every school. I know that's not always a possibility, but if there's just a few children, look at it logically versus busing children from one side of town to the other. Perhaps look at the addresses, maybe some children who are scheduled to go to Rosa that live closer to Beck. Maybe they should have shuffled everybody down by address versus homeschool. Things to be considered that I think were grossly overlooked, especially when hearing from some of the affected families that they were all very much led to believe that they were going to one school. They had representatives in their IEP meetings with them from one school and were bait and switched right at the last minute. It's a little disappointing to see time and time again our special ed kids not be given the same courtesies as the neurotypical children. Thank you.
Okay. We are at the end of our public comment period. And now I'm going to offer superintendent's comment, and I have Mrs. Sugars will be stepping in for that tonight.
Don't have a whole lot to add to the comments tonight. From the first public comment period, I'd just like to say that the items under 14.1 are not stipends, they are petty cash accounts, and they are replenished as needed. And the one that is larger because it is a work skills program at West, and things are needed such as bus fare and those kinds of items, and they go through funds rather quickly. However, the business office oversees those accounts and replenishes them as needed. I would like to also say that, you know, we are very concerned about safety. One of the things that continues to be an issue at our schools in the mornings and when students are picked up is the number of parents that are driving their students to school has added a tremendous amount of traffic. I know that a lot of that started during the pandemic and has continued post-pandemic, but that adds, you know, additional stresses onto the buildings in the mornings and in the evenings with the number of parents that are driving their students as well. So maybe consider, you know, letting your student ride the bus and reducing some of that traffic. And that's about it. That's all I have comments for.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sugars. At this time, I would like to okay, so we're moving on to the next piece. Right here. So we're going to, I make a motion, we're going to a second executive session. I make a motion to convene into a second executive session to discuss personnel items. No action will be taken after this. After this second, it's late, it's okay. Second executive session. Do I have a second? Mr. Greenbaum, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so motion carries and the closed second executive session and adjourn. I make a motion to close the second I'm sorry. Mr. Mr. Green, are we doing it right? We've had the vote. We have the vote. Motion carries. And do I hit? Okay, here we go. Second executive session.